This pagoda is the bridge to his next life. We'll feed and nourish his soul every day. Through prayer and the other spirits, he'll learn the right path. He won't carry the shortcomings of this life into the next. The ashes, my last tangible connection to my very first friend, will remain in the temple when I return to London. Teacher tells me not to worry. In the spiritual world, there is no near, there is no far, he says. Look at the distant sun. The light enters your heart immediately. My aunt and teacher walk to the ground floor to share a plate of fruit. I stay upstairs with my colleagues and stretch my arm over the edge of a red balcony to record some sound. Motorcycles whiz down the alleyway and children play, yet the temple feels still and silent. A breeze runs up my arms and through some dangling chimes. Their gentle echo sounds a lot like a laugh.
William Lee Adams there. That's all for this edition of the programme. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back again next weekend with new stories here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC program from our own.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Happy Thanksgiving on this Monday, October the 14th. Faith Fundal here for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Hello to the folks watching us on our YouTube stream. Marshall Hodgins, our technician, Chloe Friesen, our studio director. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We'll talk about what is coming up on the show in a moment here. But first, Heather Wells joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, for more than 100 years, the Rivers Police Service has served the RM of Riverdale. That ended, though, this year when the province decided the RCMP would take over policing in that western Manitoba town. The RM of Riverdale's mayor, Heather Lamb, says it's disheartening to see the force shuttered without any input from the municipality. We're going to hear more on that. And the Manitoba Cricket Association says 2 new pitches opening in Winnipeg next spring will be a huge hit. The Cricket Association's president says the sport's growing exponentially, but there aren't enough places to play in Winnipeg. That will change, as we hear, coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Coming up in our last half hour of the program, with the weather getting colder, Main Street Project wants to warm the souls of those in need one sock at a time. We'll have that conversation ahead. Also, as I mentioned, it is Thanksgiving today, so what's on the menu? We ask Winnipeggers what they are having for this weekend. For some folks, you're having your Thanksgiving dinner on this holiday Monday, so stay tuned for that. During our 7 o'clock half hour, CBC producer Julie Dupre joins us to talk about why getting a sensitive body part squeezed by a machine is still the go-to way to detect breast cancer. That's at 7:10. In our first half hour, though, the case of a child's death in Ontario from a rare infectious disease, rabies, has public health officials reminding Canadians about the risk. Dr. Raj Bardwaj joins us with the details in our first half hour of the program. Clearing today for Winnipeg for this holiday. High of 8 degrees, clear tonight as well, and a low of -5. I think it's the first night that we have below zero temperatures. So that's what we're expecting for Winnipeg today and this evening. Lots to come here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on YouTube. World Report is standing by.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Jelly Roll is not your average country singer. Growing up in a suburb of Nashville, he learned to rap and then went to jail when he was just 14. Jelly Roll will tell you about his incredible story from incarceration to music stardom and how to sell someone on the street your CD.
I never get lonely.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A healthy school lunch is becoming a luxury for an increasing number of Canadians. A large investment from the federal government tried to change that, but it is now a month and a half into the school year. And as Deanna Sumanak Johnson tells us, many schools have yet to see a penny of that money.
And then they were calling us saying all of these kids are hungry.
Jessica Stevenson, who manages school meals charity Niagara Nutrition Partners, has been getting calls from panicked school principals. High prices of groceries, more and more families struggling to provide school lunches and snacks has caused what she's calling the perfect storm. What she needs is for the Ontario government to sign on to the federally announced school food program.
The length of time that it's taking is literally going to put us under.
The federal Liberals announced the nationwide school meals program with great aplomb in the spring. $1 billion over 5 years to be divvied up among the provinces. But 6 weeks into the school year, only Newfoundland and Labrador has signed the agreement. Debbie Field, the national coordinator of the Coalition for Healthy School Food, says charities and parents shouldn't get discouraged.
And if Ontario signs as quickly as we think it will, we think that'll have a big implication for others. We know Manitoba and PI are very close to signing as well.
The impact of it, she says, will be life-changing for many, something that's clear to Debbie Marshall, head cook with Newfoundland and Labrador's School Lunches Association.
If a child haven't got a full belly, they're not going to be able to learn in school. You need a full belly.
And with the additional $9.1 million over 3 years that her province has accessed, she knows she can now fill many more bellies, fuel more young minds. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
There's more political finger-pointing going on between India and Canada. India's government has just released a statement. It says it received a diplomatic communication from Ottawa yesterday, one that suggests the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats are persons of interest in a Canadian investigation. The statement does not clarify whether that investigation is the one looking into the murder of BC Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. But it does say the High Commissioner is India's senior-most serving diplomat and calls the allegations against him preposterous and politically motivated. At least 10 people are reported dead in northern Gaza. Palestinian health officials say an Israeli airstrike hit a food distribution center there, and at least 4 people were killed in another strike at a hospital compound in central Gaza. Crystal Gomansing has more from Jerusalem.
People run fetching small buckets of water, too little to knock back flames chewing through coverings of temporary shelters. Dozens of displaced Palestinians had been sheltering around the non-functioning Al-Aqsa hospital. Israeli officials say Hamas set up a command center and was using the location to conduct strikes against Israelis.
Hamas and Hezbollah don't care about the people they ostensibly are supporting.
Colonel Brendan Carney says that doesn't mean the loss of life isn't terrible. The former chief of staff for U.S. Marines in Europe does say these groups are known to operate around people choosing to put them at risk.
Even neutral observers has said that they go ahead and they position their rocket launchers, they position their military operations in schools, in hospitals. They are looking for every opportunity to go ahead and evoke the emotions of the rest of the world.
As Israel engages in military operations in Gaza and Lebanon, it says to ensure its security, Sunday was one of the bloodiest days the country has seen in the past year. 28 soldiers were wounded in 2 separate incidents in Lebanon, and a military base in the Haifa district was attacked. The IDF confirmed 4 soldiers were killed. How Hezbollah was able to hit the base is being investigated. No warning sirens were triggered, alerting people to an incoming threat. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
China's military is conducting large-scale drills all around Taiwan. Military aircraft and ships are simulating an assault on the self-governing island.
You have entered ROC Taiwan restrict water without permission. Your action has destabilized.
That is a Taiwanese Coast Guard ship broadcasting to a Chinese vessel, telling it to leave its waters. China claims Taiwan as its own. It says these military exercises are a warning to Taiwanese separatists. The drills come just a few days after the island marked its National Day. Taiwan's defense ministry says China employed 125 military aircraft in its war games, the most in a single day. It calls that irrational and provocative behavior. Hundreds of thousands of people in Florida are still without power this morning, 5 days after Hurricane Milton tore across the state. As Aaron Collins reports, help is coming from far and wide, including Canada.
We are cleaning up debris from a fallen tree in our backyard.
In Tampa, Nicole Kemp is trying to get her yard cleaned up. Her family without power since Milton made landfall, hopeful that some visitors from out of state will change that.
But we have plenty of people from out of town. We just spoke to linesmen that are from New Jersey that came down to help. So, I mean, they're doing their best.
People in Florida are still without power. Among those trying to change that, linesmen from across Canada. Paul Bresky is with the Nova Scotia Power Crew working in Tampa.
This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We're just going to walk with purpose. We want everyone to come home the way they left.
The U.S. president has pledged $600 million to beef up the region's power grid. Joe Biden also thanked out-of-state power workers for helping to get the lights back on.
And thanks to tens of thousands of power workers from 43 states and Canada working nonstop, even more people will have more power restored soon.
A lack of power, just one problem faced by Floridians. Gas shortages around the Gulf Coast also slowing efforts to rebuild. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Tampa, Florida.
We're learning more about the armed man arrested trying to get into a Donald Trump rally. The man had a shotgun, a loaded handgun, and ammunition in his vehicle. He was detained on Saturday outside a rally in the Southern California desert. Here is Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco.
The deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens.
Bianco did not speculate about the suspect's motives or frame of mind. We do know the man who was arrested is a 49-year-old resident of Las Vegas. He was released on $5,000 bail later that same day. Trump's campaign has not commented on the arrest. Polls suggest the race between Trump and Kamala Harris is so tight the next U.S. president could be decided by a few thousand voters in a handful of states. Every vote will count. And there is a big push to get Americans who live in Canada to cast absentee ballots. The CBC's Philip Lee Shannock has that story.
Ian Hopper, the U.S. consular chief based in Toronto, says out of more than 600,000 eligible U.S. citizens in Canada, only about 3% voted in the last election.
A lot of Americans who are living overseas either think they can't vote or they're confused by the process because every state has different deadlines.
Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly cast doubt on absentee ballots in the past, saying they're susceptible to fraud, although without any evidence.
I feel very comfortable knowing that my ballot is secure.
Georgianne Burke of Republicans Overseas has already mailed her vote to Florida. She says most Americans in Canada tend to vote Democrat.
The environment here is not particularly friendly to Republicans.
Lee Strickland of Democrats Abroad says votes from Canada could tip the balance in crucial swing states again.
U.S. citizens abroad won the election in Arizona and Georgia for Joe Biden.
Mark Trussler of the University of Pennsylvania says the vote from abroad could be as divided as the vote at home.
People kind of look at this as saying, well, this is going to be, a huge benefit for the Democrats. It's hard to see that because, a lot of the overseas voters are military.
Still, Republicans are already filing lawsuits in several swing states, calling absentee ballots a source of potential voter fraud before they're even counted. Philip Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is World Report for this hour. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. One of the most read stories at cbcnews.ca about comedian Mike Bullard. The Canadian comedian died at age 67. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence in for Marcy Marcusa. It is Monday, October the 14th, Thanksgiving Day. This is Information Radio. Coming up this hour of the program, the worst of Hurricane Milton may have passed, but the challenges are just the beginning. We'll hear from a reporter in the Tampa Bay area to get a sense of the aftermath in Florida and the road to recovery. Also coming up, buttons are back. The CBC's Blair Sanderson will feel his way through a growing rejection of touch screens for something more tactile. First, though, as we get ready to sit down for a Monday night turkey dinner, a Manitoba hobby farm has another way for you to get your turkey fix. We'll bring you the story of Fernando and why this feathered fowl is known as the Latin lover. Stay tuned for that coming up next. Good morning to the folks watching us on CBC television, and hello as well to the folks streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Our streaming producer is Kevin Nipatebo. Heather Wells is in the CBC Winnipeg local news desk and joining us now. Good morning as well.
Good morning. Well, bringing an interlake forest back from the ashes, foresters are counting how many jack pine seedlings are still alive years after being planted in the ashes of a dead forest. The site in the interlake is just south of Grand Rapids. It was ravaged by wildfire in 2021. We're going to tell you about this 8-year project coming up. As well, some Winnipeggers are making a point to skip the turkey this Thanksgiving. People who were shopping for pumpkins and produce yesterday tell CBC rising costs make the idea of trying something else a little more appealing. We'll hear what else they're thinking coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Marshall Hudgens is on the controls today, and Chloe Friesen is our studio director. Happy Monday morning?
Happy Monday morning.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving morning. What day is it?
It's Monday.
It's Monday.
It's morning. No, people have not slept in. It's not up to speed.
You're not late for work.
You're not late for work.
You're good.
It's a day off. How is the morning so far?
So far, so good when it comes to the commute. I'll just remind folks about Pembina Highway. There's intermittent closures of all northbound and southbound lanes of Pembina Highway between Abino-Jimikana and Plaza Drive from today, October 14th to October 25th, and it's for electrical work. So northbound and southbound lanes will be open for morning and afternoon rush hours. Not sure if that applies today, but I guess you'll find out if you're driving in that area. If there is anything somehow getting in your way on this Thanksgiving Monday morning, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Manitobans are sitting down for a Thanksgiving turkey dinner this weekend. So we wanted to bring you a story from our archives about a very special turkey. Some years ago, the CBC's Shanley Vidal made a visit to a hobby farm in Enola called the 10 Acre Woods. That is where she met Fernando, a turkey who's known more for flirting than for feasting. She also met Shannon McNamara, who says spending time with Fernando melts the stress away and gives her a feeling of serenity.
Fernando, he's quite the character. He's, I guess you can call him a Latin lover. He's very, very social. He likes lots of attention, and he's quite original.
Can I meet Fernando?
Of course you can. Come on. This is Mr. Fernando, the turkey. Hey, Fernando.
What's so special about Fernando?
Fernando, he's his, I've never come across a turkey before, and he's so social, and he's just an amazing guy. Like, he's just, you don't expect that from a turkey, eh? Hi, Fernando. Fernando. He's such a pretty boy. He loves people. He's a bit of an attention seeker, and he's just, he's an amazing, hey?
How do you pet him?
Though a lot of people, it's interesting when people come, like, just who never met him before. They're very shy of him, kind of thing, right? They don't know how to take him because he's so social, and you can pretty much pet him any way he wants. He's gonna let me take him. Hey, he's flirting for the camera. Hey. I usually sometimes you can pet his feathers. I also pet his neck or behind his head.
Come on, kids! Come on, kids!
My name is Tara McKean, and I am the owner, founder with my husband of the 10 Acre Woods. It's a rescue based on what is best needed for the animals. So we get to know our animals really wholeheartedly. Like they're my kids. Come on, Fernando! Fernando! Come on! He says I'm posing. So when he does come up to you, he's gonna go, okay? And then he's gonna make.
What does that mean?
He's flirting with you. It's his way of saying, hey babe, pet me. What? What are you doing? He just loves attention, like a dog or a cat would do, like in a home. There's so many similarities that way. It's just, he's quite interesting.
And he is circling us right now, making us aware of his presence.
Yeah, he does, very much so. And it's like some people, when they first met him, they're kind of taken off guard with that, but he's amazing. Once you get to know Fernando and you can see his personality come out, and he just shines, and he's a flirt, as they say, flirt like Fernando, and he's cool.
Is he flirting with us now?
Of course he is. He's doing a little dance around us all right now, so. Fernando. He's such a pretty boy. So your first sign that he really is falling in love with somebody, he'll take his chest and he'll push up against somebody. We actually picked him up, a few girls this year, to try to, okay, are you do you want some turkey girls, right? Nope. He likes humans. He just loves to hang out with them.
I'm wondering if you have any tips to consider when meeting Fernando.
So he'll tuff, but he'll come right in, turn around, and pose for you. Stop putting that hand out like we were taught as kids, and he'll come right over, and then you can just pat him on the head, the back. Don't touch his belly. If you touch his belly, then you need a room. Because he likes that. Hi, Coco. Hey. Piper says, where's your boyfriend? Hey. They came in 2 years ago so fat they couldn't walk, and they love it now. Hey. Where's Petey?
Why are you so passionate about helping these animals?
When I was younger, I was a suicidal teen. There was a place called Aunt Sally's Farm, and she used to let me in the back door and help with the bottle babies and feed the animals, and that's where I would run away to. So they saved my life. So if I can give that back to them by helping them, then that's why I do what I do. Come on, bud. Look at the girls. Look, there's a guy there.
Shannon, how does it make you feel when you come here after a long day of work?
I feel great. It's kind of like you get in a Zen moment, and it's just like you can come here, you just relax, and you just feel at peace with everything.
Because we are coming up on Thanksgiving, when
yes.
a lot of people are thinking of...
And he is booked. He's booked to go out for Thanksgiving dinners. Right? That's cool.
As the guest of honor.
A guest of honor, yeah.
And thanks to the CBC Shanley Vidal, the 10 Acre Woods is just east of Winnipeg and Enola. That story goes back a few years, but Fernando is still listed on the Hobby Farms website. If you have an update on how Fernando the therapy turkey is doing, give us a call.
Would you answer a call for a reality TV show if you weren't allowed to ask what the show was about?
If you want to be on the show, stop asking that question and get on with the auditions.
I might be selling you my kidney. I don't know what it is.
But in return, they promised you the adventure of a lifetime.
No, I was thinking. I didn't want to die.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers is a new 6-part series from Love and Radio, Vespucci, and CBC.
Split Screen Thrill Seekers. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up to 20 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, on CBC television and as well on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Though it's very rare in humans, rabies can be deadly, as we were reminded with the news that a child in Ontario died from an infection after coming into contact with a bat. This was the first known human case of rabies in Canada since 2019. The CBC's Corey Funk spoke with our regular health and medicine contributor, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj, last week.
Good morning, Corey.
So can you remind us what rabies is?
Yeah, rabies is an infection that's caused by a virus. The virus spreads by bites or scratches from mammals that have rabies. They shed the virus in their saliva. So if it gets into another animal, or in rare cases like this into a human, it spreads from the wound to the muscle cells and then from the muscles to the nerves and eventually makes its way along those nerves at about 5 to 10 centimeters per day up to the brain. When it gets to the brain, it ends up causing inflammation and swelling of the bottom of the brain called the brainstem. And the time from when a person gets the rabies virus into their body to the time when they actually get symptoms from it can be anywhere from days to weeks. But there are a lot of case reports around the world where it was years between, say, a bite from a stray dog where they got exposed to rabies to the person actually developing symptoms. Rabies has the highest case fatality rate of any human infectious disease. So by the time a person has symptoms, it's nearly always fatal. The only good news, I guess, is that it's really rare. There have been fewer than 30 cases in the past 100 years in Canada, and only 5 human cases of rabies since the year 2000, but they've all been fatal.
You mentioned that it's particularly in mammals, but what specific animals can a person get rabies from?
Yeah, so dogs, cats, squirrels, skunks, raccoons, foxes, and the biggest one in Canada, the most common one, is bats. In different parts of the world, there are different risks because of where the virus, which animal population the virus establishes itself in. And of course, the rates of vaccinations for pets and stuff like that. So, for example, people think of, a bite from a stray dog. Yeah, if you're on vacation in Asia and you get bit by a stray dog, that's a lot riskier than getting bitten by a pet dog at an off-leash park in your neighborhood, for example, where there would be almost zero risk. I saw a patient who was vacationing in Central America. They were bitten by a coati, which is sort of like a daytime raccoon, and rabies post-exposure treatment was recommended by public health. But in Canada, the most common exposure is from bats, just like in this most recent case. In fact, all identified cases of human rabies exposure in Canada since 1967 have been from bats or exposure outside of Canada. And even waking up in a room with a bat, so no indication that you got scratched or bitten or anything, but you woke up in a room and there was a bat there, that's enough to at least call public health. Yeah.
You mentioned there that there is a post-exposure treatment. So what is that treatment? How does treatment work?
Yeah, so remember, once a person has symptoms of rabies, it's almost always fatal. So the key is to treat the exposure or the potential exposure before it has the chance to actually cause infection. That's called post-exposure prophylaxis or post-exposure treatment. It involves a few steps. Key step, recognize that you might have been exposed. It's worth calling public health to get advice after any animal bite, but especially if there's any potential close contact with a bat. And like I said, waking up in a room with a bat, that's enough. Just give public health a call. And then, depending on things like, where the bat was and did it fly away or did it die or could it be captured and tested for rabies, all sorts of things like that will make a difference to whether they decide to offer you this post-exposure treatment. So the post-exposure treatment, first, like I said, be aware of the potential exposure. If there is something that looks like a bite or a scratch, then washing it promptly and thoroughly is really important. For the post-exposure treatment, it's basically a couple of things. It's a combination of rabies vaccine as well as what we call rabies immune globulin, which is basically antibodies to rabies that we put into you so that they can start fighting the virus even before your immune system makes any antibodies. And then we also give you the vaccine so that your immune system can start making its own antibodies, and so you've got the best chance to fight off the virus before it can cause any illness.
So if there is a rabies vaccine and rabies is almost always fatal, so why don't we just vaccinate everyone against rabies?
Yeah, I mean, the main reason is because rabies is so rare in Canada, right? Which is why a case like this tragic death in a child in Ontario is newsworthy. There have only been 28 rabies deaths, like human rabies deaths in Canada in the past 100 years. And then the other thing, remember, rabies is a relatively slow-moving infection. So we've got time from the exposure to, before it basically gets up into your nerves and your brain, to do that post-exposure treatment. And, public health will offer vaccination to, before exposure to people in high-risk sort of environments. So people working with wild animals, certain, vets who do wild animal type stuff, people maybe traveling to certain places in the world. And the vaccine is effective for several years, so it's a good thing, but not everybody in Canada really needs it. Overall, the best way to control rabies in humans is avoid exposure to the animals that might, carry rabies as much as possible, and then also routinely vaccinate our dogs and cats, right? That's where we don't want it to get into the sort of the pet population. In countries where there are a lot of stray dogs, where people don't necessarily keep dogs, take care of them and vaccinate them, more than 90% of rabies cases come from the bite of a stray dog.
If someone does think that they might have been exposed to an animal with rabies, what should they do?
Yeah, so the most important thing is to be aware of the possibility of rabies exposure, especially with a bat. If it's a bat, like I said, you should have a lower threshold to call for advice. But, if you're out, hiking or biking or something and you get scratched or bit by like a raccoon or a fox or a stray dog or something, still worth calling and talking to public health and getting some personalized advice regarding your particular circumstances. If you're traveling outside the country and you have a potential exposure, then usually just go to a local hospital right away. And since the local doctors will know about the risks of rabies in their local animals, and it can be risky to delay treatment until you get back to Canada. So often they will either start treatment there and then you can continue the treatment back home, or they will say, yep, get home, stop your vacation, get home kind of thing. Rabies, we have to remember, is very rare in humans in Canada. Remember, only 28 human cases in the past 100 years, but it's still a threat, right? All of the people who developed symptoms of rabies died from the infection. And that post-exposure treatment before symptoms is super effective at preventing the infection in the first place.
Dr. Bardwash, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That is House Dr. Raj Bardwash speaking with the CBC's Corey Funk last week.
You have lots of questions about your own life and this really complex world around you. I'm Sarocha Coelho. I'm the host of the new live call-in show, Just Asking. I take your questions about what's in the news or your finances, health, even your relationships, and then throw them to an expert. Just Asking. Let's figure it out together.
Just Asking with Sarocha Coelho. Live Saturday afternoon at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific, and on CBC Listen.
28 and a half minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hurricane Milton has left a devastating trail across Florida with power outages and flooding affecting millions. We'll check in with a reporter near Tampa to hear the latest on how communities are coping right now. That's coming up in our next half hour of the program. Expecting clearing conditions for Winnipeg today and a high of 8 degrees. Tonight, clear and a low of -5. A similar forecast in Brandon today, clearing in the morning and a high of 10 degrees. Tonight, clear and a low of -5. Up in Dauphin, clearing as well with some foggy patches that will dissipate as the day progresses. A high of 8. Tonight, clear as well, low of -4. Thompson, today, sun and cloud mixture with some fog this morning and dissipating as the day progresses. Have 7 degrees. Tonight, a few clouds. Up in Churchill, a few flurries ending this morning. Slight chance of flurries for the rest of this day and late this afternoon, clearing as well. A high of 3 degrees tonight. Clear and a low of -2. For a list of what's open and closed on this holiday Monday, visit our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Also coming up in our next half hour, touch screens are finding their way into everything from SUVs to ovens. The CBC's Blair Sanderson tells us why some people are pushing back by asking for buttons instead. Yes, I also sometimes feel that urge to push for those things. I will have more on that coming up in our next half hour of the program. Our streaming producer today is Kevin Ipatebo. Hello to the folks watching us on YouTube and on CBC television. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, the sky is clearing. We're at 4 degrees, a little bit of a cool start, and we're not warming up a whole lot. Today's high in Winnipeg is 8. RCMP are back in the rural municipality of Riverdale after the province shut down the Rivers Police Service. That service policed the town of Rivers with its 2,000 people for 111 years. RM of Riverdale Mayor Heather Lamb says it's disheartening to see the force shuttered without input from the municipality. She wants to bring it back, but says that will take help from the province.
I have hope that we can still have a police department here in Riverdale since we had it for so long. Our next steps, though, will just be trying to get additional RCMP officers to maintain a safe community, and then maybe we can work through having staff again.
The Rivers Police Service struggled earlier this year after 4 staff, including its chief, left. Manitoba's Justice Minister says the province is still in talks with the municipality about the future of policing. Bringing an interlake forest back from the ashes. Foresters are counting how many jack pine seedlings are still alive years after being planted in the ashes of a dead forest. The site is just south of Grand Rapids in the Interlake and was ravaged by wildfire in 2021. Now, Blue Green Planet Project wants to restore Devil's Lake by planting 20 million trees by the end of the decade.
If we can reestablish forest and help capture some of that carbon and help reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, hopefully we'll be able to help slow the spread of wildfire, but also encourage other people to take on projects like this.
A group of 7 Manitoba First Nations are among volunteers in this 8-year project. They had planted 2.8 million black spruce and jack pine seedling by last spring. Some Winnipeggers are making a point to skip the turkey this Thanksgiving. People shopping for pumpkins and produce on St. Leon Gardens last day of the year yesterday say rising costs make the idea of trying something else more appealing. Tori Brown and Karina Mark decided on a potluck this year. Brown says she's leaving the turkey and the stress for Christmas.
We're trying to make sure that everyone is well taken care of, can get a little, I don't want to say stressful, but Challenging. That's the word. There we go.
Yeah. And that just takes it, again, off so that everyone who comes knows that there's going to be at least one dish they can eat because they made it.
Others say they're foregoing tradition because of dietary restrictions or just because they want to change things up. A group of 3 economists working on the inequality are among this year's winners of the Nobel Prize for Economics. The announcement was made this morning in Stockholm.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award Sveriges Riksbanks Prize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel for 2024 to Darren Acemoglu, MIT, Cambridge, USA, Simon Johnson, MIT, Cambridge, USA, and James Robinson, University of Chicago, USA.
Those U.S.-based economists looked at the history of colonization to explain why some countries are rich and some are poor. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Winnipeg cricket fans are all abuzz over new pitches coming to the city. Competitors at a cricket tournament in South Winnipeg yesterday hoping 2 new grounds coming to the area will help grow the sport. Lakvinder Virk says he sometimes has to travel as far as Brandon to get his game on.
We wait for pretty much whole week for a game in the weekend. And just because we have less grounds, sometimes we have to wait for 2 weeks to play. That's not a fun. I'm very excited because we really need more cricket grounds here.
A youth pitch is planned for Waverly Heights and a regulation-sized pitch in Bridgewater. Construction wraps up this month and both are set to open next spring. The city says the total budget for the pitches was more than $200,000. We'll make that 3 wins in a row for the Winnipeg Jets.
Shifley scores! The Jets pulled their goaltender with 0.7 of a second left.
Mark Scheifele scoring in the final seconds of the first period on TSN as the Jets beat the Wild in overtime 2-1 the final. It was Mark Scheifele's fourth goal of the young season and his 800th NHL career game. After the game, it was play of the goalie, Connor Hellebuck. Scheifele was praising. Hellebuck stopped 26 shots.
Phenomenal. He's amazing. He truly is special, and I'm I'm very, very lucky to be on his team for this long and another 7 more years.
As for that overtime goal, that came from Kyle Connor just 51 seconds into overtime. The Jets now get a bit of a break before hosting the San Jose Sharks on Friday. You can find more on that game and other news from Manitoba. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We're just about 36 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1 on this holiday Monday morning, Thanksgiving Day. It's a holiday for many folks. But for those who are up early, getting ready for work, thanks very much for joining us. I'm Faith Fundahl in for Marcy Marcusa for this morning. Chloe Friesen is in for a bunch of folks. I guess you're in for Corey.
Technically, I'm in for Corey Funk.
Technically, hello.
Hello. Not much happening, as you can expect at the moment when it comes to the commute. But if we want to look ahead here, Pembina Highway, this starts today and runs until October 25th. Pembina Highway is going to be experiencing intermittent closures of all northbound and southbound lanes of Pembina Highway between Abinogi-Mikina and Plaza Drive from October 14th, that's today, to October 25th, and that's for electrical work. The northbound and southbound lanes, however, will be open for morning and afternoon rush hour, so you will still be able to access it in the morning and afternoon during those busy periods, but all other times it will be closed. As well, Hargrave Street, this starts tomorrow. All northbound lanes of Hargrave Street between Hargrave Place and York Avenue will be closed for 1 hour during paving operations from tomorrow, October 15th, until October 17th. So you can expect delays in that area as well. But at the moment, not too much going on. If there does, 3093.
All right, thanks very much. Claire Friesen, our studio director here on the program. Marshall Hodgins is our technician. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. So hello to the folks watching us on CBC Television and the CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. When product engineers want to make something feel more modern, they often add smart touchscreens. These days, you can find smooth glass control panels on everything from ovens to elevators. But now, some designers are pushing in another direction. The CBC's Blair Sanderson has this look at why a tactile experience is making a comeback.
Morning. If you had to pick a moment in time when the touchscreen started to really take off, 2007 is a good candidate.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along.
When Steve Jobs launched Apple's new iPhone, it was a device that competed directly with other smartphones that still had physical keypads.
Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen.
This leap in design made a lot of sense, according to Rachel Plotnick, professor of media studies at Indiana University.
I study interfaces, human technology relationships, and basically how we use technology in everyday life.
Plotnick says having a screen that can display buttons means those buttons can be easily moved around and changed to suit whatever application you're using, and they can disappear when you don't need them at all. It was a design breakthrough that started popping up all over the place.
I describe it as kind of this touchscreen mania that took hold about a decade ago, where all of a sudden, designers said, let's make everything a touchscreen.
All of a sudden, buttons and knobs started disappearing from places they'd always been. The kitchen is a prime example.
Control your wall oven with a cutting-edge touchscreen. A 7-inch Brilliant Touch LCD screen lets you tap.
In addition to enabling smarter ovens, touchscreens also made them look sleeker and more modern.
Good morning. Hello. How are you? Good.
But here at this kitchen design store, owner Louise O'Haran says some people now have an appetite for appliances that skip the screens.
Completely the opposite. Nothing digital. These beautifully elaborate and colorful knobs and buttons that are actually physical and not digital displays.
O'Haran attributes the return of stove-top knobs to people's growing desire for simplicity as the world around us becomes more complex. She also says they're just more fun and intuitive to use.
It's much more satisfying.
And in some cases, especially on the road, it may be safer too.
Sitting in the Tesla interior is very normal, except for one thing, and that is this giant screen that dominates everything about the car.
This online reviewer loves Tesla's mostly buttonless console, and other automakers are following suit.
Yeah, I find that a little bit scary, actually.
Rob Tether is director of the School of Information Technology at Carleton University. He says one problem with touchscreens is there's often no tactile feedback for your fingers, which means you have to be looking at the screen to be sure you've entered the right command.
And obviously, if you're doing that while you're driving, you're splitting your attention between something potentially much more dangerous if you're not attending to what's going on the road.
But some people are paying attention, including regulators overseas. Starting in 2026, the European New Car Assessment Program will not give 5-star safety ratings to vehicles if manufacturers don't install physical buttons or switches for some key functions like hazard lights and turn indicators. Even the pioneer of touchscreen technology is getting back to basics.
If you've been waiting for the new iPhone 16 models, well, good news, because they've got new buttons.
The latest models now have a special physical button on the side of the device that gives you instant access to the camera. And there's another side button that can launch whatever app you've programmed it to open.
Yeah, and so there's a balance to be struck there, you know. And
a balance, because Professor Rob Tether says the versatility of touchscreens is useful and the right choice in many applications. But if touchscreens are used too much, they might start to really push people's buttons. For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
Now, Blair says touchscreens can also be a problem for accessibility. For example, some elevators now use touchscreens, which can present problems for folks who are blind or partially sighted.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
3 degrees here in downtown Winnipeg, coming up to a high of 8 degrees is in the forecast today, and clearing conditions as the day progresses. Still to come this half hour, the worst of Hurricane Milton may have passed, but the challenges are just the beginning. We'll hear from a reporter in the Tampa Bay area to get a sense of the aftermath in Florida and the road to recovery. That's coming up here on the program in about 5 or so minutes' time. First, though, Toronto's Divine Lightbody is in her early 20s, but she sings with a wisdom beyond her years. Here she is now. This tune is called You and Me.
Last night, obvious it's been a long day. Heard it when you put your keys away. Didn't even say a word to me. Walked past me, felt like Carrie in a bad mood. Followed you to the living room. You can't even look me in the face. It's hard, I know you feel away. It's easier to take it out on me. So lean on me, but please don't treat me like your enemy. If you need me, then speak. It's not just you. Was trying to fix it. I don't wanna be your therapist. So what now? Say you only need a minute. Now we're deep in the thick of it. I don't wanna go to bed like this. I know it's hard.
Out of Toronto, that was Divine Lightbody with her latest song, You and Me. We're at 13 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal. Floridians are still dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Milton, one of the most destructive storms to hit the state in a century. The Category 3 hurricane unleashed multiple tornadoes, caused widespread damage, and has left at least 16 people dead. Mitch Perry is senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joining us now in Hillsborough County, about 16 kilometers east of Tampa. Hi, Mitch.
Good morning.
How would you describe the aftermath of Hurricane Milton at this point in time?
Well, it's slowly getting better. And by that, I mean, let's just talk about gasoline, because a couple days ago, you could not find it anywhere in the Tampa Bay area. On Saturday morning, Governor Ron DeSantis was in Plant City, which is where I'm at right now in eastern Hillsborough County, and he announced that the state was providing what they call fuel depots in about 3 locations in this area. Everybody could get 10 gallons of gas for free. People don't necessarily want free gas. They want gas they can purchase, just find it. And so they did that, I think, almost as a PR move. And that huge lines for that on Saturday. But as of yesterday afternoon, there seemed to be a lot more gas stations that now have gasoline. So that's allowing people to just return back, in cases, back to their home, or for companies that need to get rid of some of this debris so they can get gas in their cars. So it's going a bit slower than maybe one would hope. But again, we're dealing with, of course, 2 major storms here in the last few weeks. So there's a lot to clean up still.
Is it obvious what what dealing with the first part of the storm is versus what folks are dealing with in terms of the latest storm, or is everything just a mess?
Yeah, well, Helene a couple weeks ago, right? That was a storm surge event, unlike anything we've ever really seen, certainly in the Tampa Bay area, with storm surge of over 8 feet in areas. You had so much flooding on the coast of Pinellas County, where all these beaches communities are at, right? So, and those people still have not nearly recovered at all. So much debris outside from that in that area. And then with Milton, more of a traditional classic hurricane in terms of the high winds and the strong rains. That has led to a lot of physical destruction in terms of property, in terms of trees down, and also flash flooding. A little different than storm surge, but we're still seeing that. We're seeing some of these rivers in this area still cresting higher, and when those things go up, that leads to floods, days after the storm itself. So definitely still in recovery mode here, and by no means out of the woods, but obviously, a slow process. We saw President Biden, I should say, Joe Biden came to town yesterday to St. Pete Beach, and he offered, federal government support, which is very much appreciated. It seems like the government, FEMA, and the state of Florida is working well together. FEMA's agreed to pay 100% of all the debris costs for the first 90 days. That's not usually that breakdown. I think it's 75% they usually do, and the local governments have to pay the rest. So you're seeing definitely efforts to get this thing, get it under control here.
What's your sense of how folks are reacting about the response from all the levels of government?
I think people are grateful for the most part, but, people are really, depending on their individual circumstances, really in shock mode, right? I mean, again, these 2 storms, for those who have been deleteriously affected in terms of their homes, I mean, definitely people lost their homes or either permanently or temporarily because of the flooding. And, you're hearing a lot of folks basically say they don't know if they want to live here anymore. This has been one of the fastest growing states in the country in recent years. But it's increasingly becoming more expensive to live here, with property insurance costs going up because of the storms. And some people, of course, love it and they'll never leave. But others are asking the question, okay, if I do leave, where do I go? Because it's just extremely stressful. And this is going to be something that's going to be happening, as happened every year, right? Every summer or early fall. And so it's been tough emotionally for this area for certain.
There are folks from Canada as well helping out with those recovery efforts. Is it clear yet how long that might take, or what the progress or timeline might look like?
I don't know that. It's just, the proverbial a long time. Again, it looks like in Pinellas County, where you're right. There's a lot of snowbirds from Canada who reside in the areas. Dunedin is the home of the Toronto Blue Jays spring training facility, and the Blue Jays have a minor league farm team there. It was a very hard-hit area. And so, right, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of property damage there. A lot of people can't live in those areas. A lot of motels and hotels along the Pinellas Gulf Coast, right, that sees a lot of tourism. That's not going to happen for any time soon, because those motels and hotels are just not available because they all got hit really hard. So it's really hard. I don't even think we've gotten close to calculating, what the costs are going to be for the Tampa Bay area, which is where I'm in, because again, this is the area that really got hit walloped twice here. And I think it's just way too soon to know what it's ultimately how long it's going to take to get everything back to quote unquote normal.
Mitch, appreciate you making time to give us an update here. Thank you and take good care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mitch Perry, senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix. We spoke to him from Hillsborough County, just east of Tampa, Florida.
Breaking this hour,
CBC News brings you all the local, national, and international news you need to make sense of your world.
I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement.
Now's your chance to enjoy a free preview of Canada's source for breaking and live news.
The air raid sirens went off.
Find out why more Canadians choose CBC News Network over any other Canadian news channel. The CBC News Network free preview, on now. CBC Music Live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. New episodes now available, including highlights from the 2024 Polaris Music Prize Gala featuring two-time winner Jeremy Dutcher.
I have unending gratitude to this music community.
CBC Music Live at Massey Hall. Watch now on CBC Gem.
7 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal. If your kids are home enjoying the long weekend, let's hope they have their homework done. We're going to hear from a learning strategist about ways to tackle that backlog of assignments and make the rest of the school year manageable. Stay tuned for that conversation in our next half hour of the program. First, though, Juliana Riolino's latest song might have you feeling a little nostalgic. It got a distinctive 60s vibe. It has a distinctive 60s vibe to it. This one's called Against the Grain.
Don't let no one tell you how to speak or how to look. Wear your hair like you wanna. Don't get hung up on the rules. I chased the dream of a simple life, but it only served to cause me strife. 'Cause I was made to go against the grain. So don't tell me to fall in line again. The common life was never made for me. The song I sing will carry me away. Now if we meet on Main Street, play it cool and tip your hat. You and I've got a secret, 'cause we don't follow the pack. And I'm not just made for the simple life. I would rather be on stage tonight, 'cause I was made to go against the grain. So don't tell me to fall in line again. The common life was never made for me. The song I sing will carry me away. Can't you see that I'm sparkling now? Ooh, bring the lights up and hear the cry. So don't tell me to fall in line again. The common life was never made for me.
Out of Welland, Ontario, that was Juliana Riolino with Against the Grain. We're at 4 minutes before the top of the hour. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, 7 First Nations are working together to reforest Devil's Lake. The site in Manitoba's Interlake was ravaged by wildfire in 2021. We're going to hear how they're going to do it. As well, the Manitoba Cricket Association say 2 new pitches opening in Winnipeg next spring will be a huge hit. They say that the Cricket Association president says the sport's growing exponentially, but there aren't enough places to play in Winnipeg. We'll hear where those 2 new pitches will be coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
I know a lot of folks will be excited about that.
Yeah, I
very
bet.
much. All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Claire Friesen back for an update on a bunch of things. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, not a whole lot going on out there on the commute, but I want to remind folks that today, so city buses in both Brandon and Winnipeg, they are running, but they're running on a Sunday schedule today. So if you are planning to take the bus, adapt to what yesterday's schedule would have been, but again, today, a Sunday schedule. And again, that's both in Brandon and Winnipeg. But if there is anything getting in your way on your commute today, you can let us know what you're seeing out there. You might be coming back from visiting family. Let us know how the highways are. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. Claire Friesen, our studio director here on the program, Marshall Hudgens on the controls. Kevin Ipatebo is our streaming producer. Hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream, and a hello and almost goodbye to the folks watching us on CBC television today. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Expecting clearing conditions for Winnipeg today and a temperature high of 8 degrees. Clear tonight as well and a low of -8. Clear as well, clearing for Brandon today and a high of 10 degrees. Tonight, clear and a low of -8. Dauphin today, clearing as well. You will notice some foggy patches that will burn off. Well, it will dissipate, not burn off, dissipate as the day progresses, and a high of 8 degrees. Sun and cloud mixture for Thompson today, high of 7 with a southerly wind gusting to 40 near noon. Tonight, some clouds and a low of -4. In Churchill, flurries ending, then clearing later this afternoon with some fog, a high of 3 degrees. Still to come, CBC producer Julie Dupre joins us to talk about why getting a sensitive body part squeezed by a machine is still the go-to way to detect breast cancer. Stay tuned for that conversation coming up after World Report. Stay tuned. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the app.
On The Current.
The people who are unhoused live half as long as the general public or people who are housed.
At One Toronto Hospital Network, 100 patients with no fixed address made up 3% of all emergency room visits. Now, a group of these patients is getting a permanent home and a chance at a new life. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. U.S. officials say they are still trying to understand why an armed man attempted to get into a Trump rally this weekend. He was arrested outside the event in Southern California on Saturday. Then he was quickly released on bail. Steve Futterman has the story.
The arrest took place at a police checkpoint outside of a weekend rally where Trump was scheduled to speak at.
I truly do believe that we prevented another assassination attempt.
The sheriff in Riverside County, Chad Bianco, says he believes the man arrested, Vem Miller, wanted to kill Trump.
What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms.
The sheriff's department says officers found a shotgun, a loaded handgun, and a high-capacity magazine inside the vehicle. The 49-year-old suspect from Las Vegas was arrested on 2 misdemeanor firearms charges and released on $5,000 bail. He says he is a Trump supporter and denies accusations that he wanted to harm the former president. Security surrounding Trump has greatly increased since this.
Take a look at what happened.
The July 13th assassination attempt against Trump in Fulton, Pennsylvania. A bullet slightly grazed Trump's ear. Last month, another man was arrested in Florida. He has been charged with plotting to kill Trump. At this point, U.S. officials say they do not believe Trump's life was in danger this weekend, but an investigation is ongoing. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Polls suggest the race between Trump and Kamala Harris is so tight the next U.S. president could be decided by a few thousand voters in a handful of states. Every vote will count, and there's a big push to get Americans who live in Canada to cast absentee ballots. The CBC's Philip Lee Shannock has that story.
Ian Hopper, the U.S. consular chief based in Toronto, says out of more than 600,000 eligible U.S. citizens in Canada, only about 3% voted in the last election.
A lot of Americans who are living overseas either think they can't vote or they're confused by the process.
Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly cast doubt on absentee ballots in the past, saying they're susceptible to fraud, although without any evidence.
I feel very comfortable knowing that my ballot is secure.
Georgianne Burke of Republicans Overseas has already mailed her vote to Florida. She says most Americans in Canada tend to vote Democrat.
The environment here is not particularly friendly to Republicans.
Lee Strickland of Democrats Abroad says votes from Canada could tip the balance in crucial swing states again.
U.S. citizens abroad won the election in Arizona and Georgia for Joe Biden.
Philip Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
India's government is defending its High Commissioner to Canada. It says Ottawa has identified him and other diplomats as persons of interest in a Canadian investigation. It's not clear if that is the investigation looking into the murder of BC Sikh activist Hardip Singh Nijjar. But the Indian government is calling the allegations preposterous and politically motivated. At least 4 people have been killed by an Israeli strike at a hospital complex in central Gaza. Medics say displaced Palestinians were sheltering at the facility. Hamas denies that. Anna Cunningham has the latest.
Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in the centre of Dar al-Bala city. The fire, the aftermath of an Israeli airstrike. People in the area grabbed what they could. Others tried to dismantle the temporary camp where people had been sheltering. The flames lit up the night as some attempted to douse the blaze. Footage from the Associated Press showed a small child, his leg bandaged, being given a blood transfusion on the floor of the packed hospital. The Israeli military said it targeted militants hiding among civilians, but gave no further details. Elsewhere in northern Gaza, a separate strike. Palestinian medics say at least 10 people were killed and 30 others injured in the Jabalia refugee camp used as a food distribution centre. These strikes come a day after a school turned into a shelter in the central Nuseirat camp was hit by a volley of artillery. At least 22 people, including 15 children, were reportedly killed. UNRWA said the shelter was due to distribute polio vaccines today. The IDF has not commented, but has previously said Hamas used civilian shelters as military bases. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
אני נמצא פה בבסיס צבאי במרכז הארץ, סמוך לבנימינה.
That is Israeli Army spokesperson Daniel Hagari speaking in northern Israel this morning. He's one of several top defense officials who visited the site of yesterday's drone attack. Hezbollah launched the attack, which killed 4 soldiers and injured dozens more. The militant group says it was a response to Israeli strikes on Lebanon last Thursday. Hagari says the military is investigating how the drone got through without raising an alarm at the base. Taiwan says China's latest round of war games is a provocation. 125 Chinese military aircraft were deployed around the self-governing island. Beijing calls it a warning to separatists, just days after Taiwan marks its National Day. Jan Kamenzen Brumby reports from Taipei.
Adjust your course and leave out restricted waters.
In the waters and the airspace around Taiwan, Chinese military drills. Codenamed Joint Sword 2024B, Beijing says the joint military exercises focus on testing their real combat capabilities. They have surrounded Taiwan and its offshore islands at 9 key locations and forced Taipei to scramble its own jets in response. The exercises come just days after Taiwan's National Day celebrations, during which Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te called for cooperation with Beijing, but also said that China had no right to represent Taiwan. Beijing views Taiwan as its own territory and has never ruled out taking the island by force. It previously accused Lai of supporting Taiwanese independence. In Washington, the White House said it was monitoring developments and has called on China to act with restraint. But Beijing has not yet signaled when these exercises will end. And although no live-fire operations have been announced yet, China's Eastern Theater Command released a video on Sunday warning it was prepared for battle. Jan Clements-Brumby for CBC News, Taipei.
An unexpected discovery is offering a glimpse of life 100 years ago on Newfoundland's east coast. Rare photographs of rural communities have been found in Ontario. As the CBC's Jessica Singer reports, it's led to a bit of an adventure with some fascinating discoveries.
I was sort of in shock when I first heard that you had found a picture of my great-grandparents.
Peggy Halliburton lives on a farm in Milton, Ontario, but she has roots on Newfoundland's east coast. She was recently shown.
These are people who made me who I am.
The image was part of a trove of old photos depicting candid scenes of how people lived in rural Newfoundland over 100 years ago.
Some images of churches in there.
David Howes is an avid collector. He found the photographs in a small antique shop in rural Ontario. He says they are originals because there's no stamp indicating they've been mass-produced.
Someone went to Western Bay and thought, this is something that the world needs to see.
Through research in family records, the photos were matched to some of the people and places in them, including Newfoundlander Carolyn Marshall, whose family was one of the first to settle in one of the communities captured. When shown, she recognized most of the landscapes and says the old photos remind her of childhood.
To me, it's important to know where I came from, what the people did with their lives. Oh, look at the horse and cart, look, going to church.
And while this has been a rare chance to peer back in time, as for who captured these moments and why, will likely keep as part of the enduring mystery. Jessica Singer, CBC News, Western Bay, Newfoundland.
3 researchers focused on wealth inequality are this year's winner of the Nobel Prize for Economics. Darren Asemgulu, Simon Johnson, and James Robinson are all based in the United States. They looked at the history of colonization to explain why some countries are rich and some poor. Jan Tiorelli sits on the prize committee.
What they showed was that as a result of colonization, there were huge differences in economic and political institutions that arose in the colonized parts of the world, largely due to how many Europeans actually settled.
The Economist showed that in colonies where many Europeans settled, institutions were set up to grow the economy long term. But in colonies where the goal was to exploit indigenous peoples and resources, the institutions were extractive. That led to instability and poverty. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Coming up in this hour, tips for tackling a mountain of homework. We'll hear from a learning strategist about how to make school less overwhelming. It's also Thanksgiving Day today. What's on the menu? We asked Winnipeggers what they are having today and this weekend. If you had your dinner this weekend, we'll hear what they have to say. First, though, it can be dreaded and feared, but it remains the gold standard in detecting breast cancer. I'm talking about mammograms. Coming up, CBC producer Julie Dupre tells us why the screening procedure still holds that title. It's coming up next. Stay tuned. Kevin DiPatebo is our streaming producer. Hello to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Marshall Hodgins, our technician. Chloe Friesen, our director. But first, over to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk. And Heather Wells joining us now with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, RCMP are back in the rural municipality of Riverdale in western Manitoba after the province shut down the Rivers Police Service. That service policed the town of Rivers with its 2,000 people for 111 years. The mayor of the RM of Riverdale says they're still fighting to get the Rivers Police back in action. Some Winnipeggers are making a point to skip the turkey this Thanksgiving. People who were shopping for pumpkins and produce yesterday tell CBC rising costs make the idea of trying something else more appealing. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Chloe Friesen, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving, Faith.
And to you as well.
Yes.
Yes.
The commute, since it is a long weekend for many, the commute is quite non-existent, I will say, this morning. Not busy. I will mention that bus schedules in the city of Brandon and the city of Winnipeg are on a Sunday schedule today, and you can find a full list of what's open and closed today in Manitoba on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. But if you're looking ahead here, we will see intermittent closures of all northbound and southbound lanes of Pembina Highway between Abinogi-Meekina and Plaza Drive, starting today, running until October 25th. This is for electrical work. The northbound and southbound lanes will be open for morning and afternoon rush hours, but that's it. So don't really rely on the Pembina Highway between Abinogi-Meekina and Plaza Drive until about October 25th, when that work is slated to be finished. If you do spot something that is slowing you down this morning, you can give us a call at 204-788-3093.
Minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and along with all of the pink ribbons, there are also repeated reminders about the importance of screening to detect the disease. For the past 60 years or so, the mammogram has been and is still considered the gold standard in breast cancer detection. But if you've been through one, the experience can sometimes be a bit uncomfortable. CBC radio producer Julie Dupre wanted to find out why the mammogram is still queen, and if there are any other contenders who could unseat her when it comes to breast cancer screening. The CBC's Marcy Marcusa spoke with her earlier.
Good morning, Marcy. So I mentioned mammograms have been the gold standard in breast cancer screening for over half a century. How did that all start?
Well, the very first mammogram was actually performed more than 100 years ago, back in 1913, by a German surgeon named Dr. Albert Solomon. But it wasn't done on a living human. It was done on breasts removed by mastectomy. Through his work x-raying 3,000 specimens, Dr. Solomon uncovered that there are different types of breast cancers and how those cancers can spread through lymph nodes. Now, it wasn't until after the First World War that a mammogram was actually conducted on a living person. And when it comes to widespread use in Canada, BC was the first province to introduce a formal breast screening program that happened back in 1988. In 1990, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta followed suit. And by 1998, programs were in place pretty much countrywide.
If mammography is the gold standard, why did you want to look at alternatives, Julie?
Well, one of the issues with mammography is its reputation as being an uncomfortable and sometimes an even painful procedure. After all, it does involve having a sensitive body part, in this case breasts, compressed between two firm surfaces. The reason they do that is to spread out the breast tissue so the x-rays can better penetrate the tissue and detect any abnormalities like cancerous tumors. Breast cancer is still the most diagnosed cancer among women in Canada. According to Canadian Cancer Society estimates, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer during their lifetime, and nearly 1 in 5 of the women affected will die from it. But mammograms are not fail-proof. Heather Brister knows this firsthand. Back in 2021, when she was 44 years old, she felt a small pea-sized lump in her right breast, so her family doctor sent her for a mammogram.
And my mammogram showed nothing. I was told I was too young, really, to worry about anything and sent on my way. About 8 months later, I felt it and it was very large. So I went back to my doctor and I had a mammogram and I was told the same thing, even though nothing showed in the mammogram. The mammographer said, I don't see anything sinister here, but because you can feel it, let's send you down the hall for an ultrasound. And the ultrasound did not take very long for them to realize that there was something going on.
Now, Heather was diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative invasive ductal carcinoma, and her cancer had spread to her lymph nodes. Triple negative breast cancers are aggressive and invasive. They tend to grow and spread faster than other types of breast cancers, and they're also trickier to treat. Heather's diagnosis came despite 3 mammograms that failed to detect that anything was wrong.
3 of them. So what happened in her case then? How did 3 mammograms miss her cancer?
Well, in Heather's case, she has dense breast tissue. And according to the nonprofit agency Dense Breasts Canada, about 43% of women who are over the age of 40 have dense breasts. Dr. Jean Seeley is a professor of radiology at the University of Ottawa. She's also the founding president of the Canadian Society of Breast Imaging.
You cannot tell breast tissue density without the mammogram. That's what tells you whether you have dense tissue, which means you have more glandular tissue, or non-dense breasts, which means you have more fatty breast tissue. And because we're using the x-rays to look through the breast, what happens is when you have a lot of glandular tissue, you're looking for a dense mass, a breast cancer, in a background of dense tissue, so both of those are white on the mammogram. And so it makes it more difficult to find cancers.
Well, Dr. Seeley says having dense breasts also increases the risk of getting breast cancer by, on average, twice the risk to non-dense breasts. And that's why additional screening like an ultrasound or a breast MRI can be key to finding cancers in dense breast tissue. And as you might recall, it did take an ultrasound to find Heather Brister's cancer.
So if that's the case, that the ultrasound was ultimately what uncovered what multiple mammograms, you said 3 of them couldn't, why not just go with the test that doesn't require all the squishing and radiation in the first place?
Well, I wondered the same thing, so I put that question to Dr. Seeley.
Doing a screening mammogram in a woman of the right age will reduce her likelihood of having a breast cancer diagnosed at a later stage and actually reduce her breast cancer mortality. And that is well established. It has been the case for over 20 years. There are other imaging tests like a breast ultrasound, but it has never been shown to reduce the mortality from breast cancer in large population-based screening programs. So it's used as a supplemental tool. The other imaging that we will use for the breast is breast MRI. And we are able to see cancers at a very much smaller size than if we use the mammograms only. There is evidence now that suggests that it's very good for women with dense breasts. We just don't have enough MRI machines in the country to be able to do all the women who should be screened with this tool in addition to the mammogram.
So at this point, mammograms are still considered the leader when it comes to detecting most breast cancers in most breast tissue, and they are able to detect masses as small as a pea. Now, according to the Canadian Cancer Society, the 5-year survival rate of breast cancer patients now stands at 89%, and that's thanks in part to early detection. But that doesn't mean that new screening tools aren't also being considered. In addition to further improving mammograms, Dr. Seeley says other options being studied include blood or saliva tests that would be able to identify who might be at a greater risk of developing breast cancer, but it's still very early days.
So given all of what you've shared, what's the best advice, I guess, best way to go about getting screened for breast cancer?
Well, if you have any concerns, the first thing you should do is to contact your doctor and get a mammogram. A breast cancer is primarily a cancer that affects women, but it can also affect men. According to the Canadian Cancer Society, 290 Canadian men will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, and 60 will die from it. Now, another somewhat recent development in breast cancer screening is the lowering of the age for the start of routine mammography, something we're seeing here in Manitoba, where we're dropping the age from 50 to 40. And despite her experiences with mammograms that didn't find her cancer, Heather Brister is still a big believer in mammography.
I think people need to realize if you have concerns, you can get a mammogram. And I have had this conversation with people, and they are under the impression that you can't even get one before you're 50. I think women need to know that if you have concerns or questions or a family history of breast cancer, you should be going to your family doctor and go for a mammogram. Don't wait.
And now, after a mastectomy, 30 rounds of radiation, and 6 more months of chemotherapy on top of that, as of April, Heather is done with active treatment, and she hopes her story will encourage others to take their health more seriously.
Julie, thank you for this.
Thanks.
That is CBC producer Julie Dupre for CBC Radio in Winnipeg, speaking to the CBC's Marcy Marcusa. Coming up to 22 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Not surprisingly, it's not very busy out there, so the commuter line has been pretty quiet. If you do see any issues and you're shouting at the radio saying, "What are you talking about, Faith?" It's busy. Insert wherever you are. Call our commuter line 2047-883-093, 2047-883-3093, and please do so hands-free. It's mainly cloudy, mostly cloudy, and 4 degrees here in downtown Winnipeg. We are expecting clearing conditions for the rest of today with a northeast wind at 20 kilometers an hour this afternoon. Again, a high of 8 degrees tonight for Winnipeg, clear, and a low of -5. For Brandon, today clearing as well later this morning, a high of 10 degrees. That's a wind becoming easterly, gusting to 50 kilometers an hour. Clear tonight and a low of -5 for Brandon. Up in Dauphin, clearing for today. I shouldn't say up. In Dauphin today, clearing conditions expected with some foggy patches dissipating as the day progresses. Easterly wind gusting to 40, a high of 8. Tonight, clear and a low of -4. In Thompson, sun and cloud today, mixture with some foggy patches that will dissipate as the day progresses. A southerly wind gusting to 40 near noon, high of 7. Tonight, a few clouds and a low of -4. Churchill today, clearing by the afternoon time, some foggy patches as well that will dissipate with a southwesterly wind gusting to 40 near noon, high of 3 tonight, clear, and a low of -2 degrees. It's mostly cloudy and 3 at the airport in Winnipeg, 3 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions in Brandon. In Dauphin this hour, cloudy and 3 degrees. Thompson, mainly clear and -8 degrees. And at the airport in Churchill, misty and -1 degree. Just about 24 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello to the folks watching as well on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. And let's head to your CBC National Sports Desk. John Hancock joining us now. Good morning. Hello.
Go Jets.
Go Jets, go.
Go Jets.
Lots of very excited folks. Very excited.
They look really impressive, I'll tell you. They're off to a 3-0 start. Kyle Connor scoring the game winner 51 seconds into overtime. 2-1 they beat Minnesota. And Connor says, yeah, we've been working on special teams.
Special teams are a big focal point in camp. You can see the work that we've done. PK was excellent, kind of got us momentum there at the end. And obviously to draw a penalty, get a 4-on-3 over.
You know what I liked is they had, about 3 seconds to go in the first period. They were down 1-0. They pulled their goaltender because they had a face-off in the Minnesota zone and actually scored on that play, Mark Scheifele. And they practice that to see how fast they can get a shot away in the other team's zone, knowing full well that there's no way they're going to be able to score into an empty net with that amount of time left. Mm-hmm. It was a very impressive play by the Jets, and they certainly are full value for this 3-0 start to their season.
And John, I'm already seeing a lot of folks, some folks, saying, is it too early to talk about a Stanley Cup? But anyway, it's way too early.
Well, they had a pretty good season last season, and they're feeling good about themselves right now. So Scott Arneal's got that team playing very well. And then you've got the Oilers, who are off to another dreadful start, 0-3, reminiscent of last season. And Calgary, surprisingly, off to a 3-0 start, winning 4-1 yesterday. Calgary Flames also looking good like the Jets. 6 games today. A couple of Canadian teams are playing. Ottawa's hosting LA. That's an afternoon game. And Montreal's home to Pittsburgh tonight. And just before I leave hockey, Canada earned a 3rd straight silver medal after losing 5-3 to the U.S. at that International Para-Hockey Cup that wrapped up Sunday in Czechia.
Speaking of playoffs, baseball playoffs, let's talk about that.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Dodgers tied the postseason record of 33 consecutive scoreless innings, shutting out the Mets 9-0 to open the National League Championship Series. Jack Flaherty and the bullpen combined on a 3-hitter. Dodgers had a 6-run lead by the fourth, so that game was over early. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts on his starting pitcher, Flaherty.
It was just a pitching clinic. I thought he did a great job of filling up the strike zone with his complete mix, used his fastball when he needed to, just minimize damage. And, once we caught a lead, he did a great job of just going after those guys and attacking. And, for us to get 7 innings in a long series was huge.
Game 2 this afternoon, 3 o'clock, and it's in L.A. And the first game of the American League Championship Series between the Yankees and Cleveland Guardians goes tonight at 6:30, and that game at Yankee Stadium.
Lots of football over the weekend, although I imagine Winnipeg may not want to remember yesterday or this weekend.
I must admit I was shocked to see the Bombers have their 8-game winning streak end by the Argos, but there you go. The Argos needed that win to clinch a playoff spot in the CFL East, and they did just that. Close game, but it was 14-11, but it was a surprise because the Bombers were on a roll and they're still looking to clinch the West with their next win. And Saskatchewan clinched second in the West and will host a semifinal after their lopsided win over the BC Lions. And a football game coming up today. The Ottawa Redblacks will play at Montreal. Ottawa sitting a point out of second place behind the Argos, so lots on the line there for them.
My partner is in Regina right now, and so he was kind of saying, ha ha.
Yeah, that Saskatchewan team's looking pretty good right now.
Before you go, let's talk about the Toronto Raptors facing the Boston in preseason basketball. How did the Raptors do?
Yeah, well, the Celtics jumped out to a 41-20 first-quarter lead and kind of coasted the rest of the way. Beat the Raptors 115-111, Raptors' second loss in 3 exhibition games. Grady Dick looked good, though. He led Toronto with 18 points in his second season. And in WNBA basketball, New York Liberty beat Minnesota Lynx 80-66. That best-of-5 final tied at a game each. Game 3 in Minnesota tomorrow night.
Hey, we have a bit of time, so let's talk about soccer news and sailing to finish.
All right. And by the way, that basketball match is Wednesday night. Major League Soccer, Vancouver Whitecaps lost 2-1 when Los Angeles FC scored 3 minutes into stoppage time. The Whitecaps will be in the playoffs, by the way. In the Canadian Premier League, Vancouver FC and Winnipeg's Valor FC tied 1-1. Vancouver sitting 2 points back of Victoria's Pacific FC for the 5th and final playoff spot with 1 game to play in the regular season. And in sailing at the America's Cup, Emirates Team New Zealand avoided a crash and took advantage of a penalty to Britannia, opening up a 3-0 lead in the first to 7 wins in the America's Cup. Race 4 coming up today.
It's really nice chatting with you, John. Happy Thanksgiving.
And the same to you. Take care.
You as well. John Hancock from your CBC National Sports Desk. We're at 29 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app, and as well on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Chloe Friesen is our studio director. Marshall Hodgins, our technician today. And I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Still to come on the program, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? We asked some Winnipeggers that question. We're going to hear what they had to say coming up here on the program. Stay tuned. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It's a little bit crisp out there. 4 degrees right now in Winnipeg. We're not warming up a lot, a high of 8 under a sunny sky. RCMP are back in the rural municipality of Riverdale after the province shut down the Rivers Police Service. That service policed the town of Rivers with its 2,000 people for 111 years. The mayor of the arm of Riverdale says they're still fighting to get the Rivers Police back in action. Garth Bentner lives in Rivers. He's relieved the police service is gone because he says it'll save the taxpayers money.
I think rivers could live without a police service with the RCMP doing what they're doing for us. But in mind, if they do come back, I would love to see a small little police affordable service set up and maybe a resident police officer.
The Rivers Police Service struggled earlier this year after 4 staff, including its chief, left. Manitoba's Justice Minister says the province and Riverdale continue to work together, and the future of policing in the RM is not fully decided. 7 First Nations are working together to reforest Devil's Lake. The site in Manitoba's Interlake was ravaged by a wildfire in 2021. It sits along Highway 6 south of Grand Rapids. Floyd North is a liaison for the First Nations. He says while reforestation projects often take place on their lands, it's been a long time coming for Indigenous communities to play a role.
The biggest part of that is the reconciliation. For First Nations, they've always wanted to be part of the decision making, always wanted to be part of the forest industry, but took almost 150 years.
Blue Green Planet Project began planting seedlings in the area in 2022. 29 of the volunteers are Turkey this Thanksgiving. People shopping for pumpkins and produce on St. Leon Gardens' last day of the year yesterday say rising costs make the idea of trying something else more appealing. Tori Brown and Karina Mark decided on a potluck this year. Brown says she's leaving the turkey and the stress for Christmas.
We're trying to make sure that everyone is well taken care of, can get a little, I don't want to say stressful, but challenging. Challenging, that's the word. There we go.
Yeah. And that just takes it, again, off so that everyone who comes knows that there's going to be at least one dish they can eat because they made it.
Others say they're foregoing tradition because of dietary restrictions or just because they want to change things up. We go now to the Middle East.
אני נמצא פה בבסיס צבאי במרכז הארץ, סמוך לבנימינה.
Israeli Army spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari speaking in northern Israel. He was one of several top defense officials visiting the site of a deadly drone attack. Hagari says they are investigating how the drone got through without raising an alarm at the base. Hezbollah launched the attack yesterday, killing 4 soldiers and wounding dozens. The Nobel Prize for Economics was awarded this morning to 3 researchers who focused on inequality. The U.S.-based economists looked at the history of colonization to explain why some countries are rich and some are poor. Jan Tiorel sits on the prize committee for this award.
What they showed was that as a result of colonization, there were huge differences in economic and political institutions that arose in the colonized parts of the world, largely due to how many Europeans actually settled.
Darren Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James Robinson are the 3 winners. They showed in colonies where many Europeans settled, institutions designed to grow the economy long-term were set up. But in colonies where the goal was to exploit Indigenous people and resources, the institutions were extractive, leading to instability and poverty. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The Manitoba Cricket Association says 2 new pitches opening in Winnipeg next spring will be a huge hit. Cricket Association President Paramjeet Shahi says the sport has grown exponentially, but there aren't enough places to play.
Bridgewater is a very diverse neighborhood, and locally you can see every single baseball diamond is full of cricket players during the weekdays, weekends. And those players have a home right now. With this new cricket pitch, they can play.
A full-sized pitch is planned for Bridgewater and another one for kids in West Waverly. Well, make that 3 straight wins for the Winnipeg Jets in all 3 games of this new NHL season.
Connor waits, fires, and scores!
Kyle Connor with a power play goal on TSN, lifting the Jets to a win with just 51 seconds into overtime. Winnipeg beat the Minnesota Wild 2-1. The Jets' other goal came with just 2.9 seconds left in the first period. That was Mark Scheifele. It was Scheifele's 4th goal of the season and came on his 800th career NHL game. Connor Hellebuck making 26 saves, and the Jets' next play on Friday, which happens to be Connor Hellebuck Night. Winnipeg will host San Jose. You can find more on that game and more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather Wells, when you were talking about hockey, I pulled up my shirt because I'm wearing a Winnipeg Jets shirt.
Did you show everyone?
Fortunately,
I don't think the cameras caught it,
the
but
cameras
I
did not catch it. So yay. But it's okay. It's something that I know fans are thankful for.
It's
today.
good to flash the Jets anytime.
Yep. In the way that we've described. Right?
Exactly. As I said that, I thought maybe we should rethink that phrase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Joni Nicolou as well there. And Information Radio. I almost said it. Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Marshall Hodgins on the controls. Kevin Ipatebo is our streaming producer. Chloe Friesen is the other voice you heard. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. I'm thankful for a easy commute this morning.
I like it.
Because there's no calls on the commuter line. There's not a lot going on a holiday, on a long weekend, Monday. But I will remind folks that if you are planning on using public transit today in both Brandon and Winnipeg, it is buses are running on a Sunday schedule today. And if you want information about what's all open and closed here in Winnipeg, you can find that on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And yeah, when it comes to the commute, not a whole lot going on out there. But if you do happen to see something that you think your fellow commuter should know about, you can give us a call at 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much. Chloe Friesen, our studio director here. Yeah, be aware that it is a Sunday schedule because it's 4 degrees here in downtown Winnipeg, expecting a high of 8 degrees. As the day progresses, we are going to see a northeast wind at 20 kilometers an hour this afternoon. Tonight, clear and a low of -5 for Brandon, clearing later today with an easterly wind gusting to 50, high of 10. Tonight, clear and a low of -5. Dauphin today, clearing, some foggy patches, a high of 8. Tonight, clear and a low of -4. Sun and cloud mixture for Thompson with some fog that will dissipate, high of 7. Tonight, a few clouds, low of -4. And for Churchill today, expecting clearing conditions by the afternoon time, some fog as well that will dissipate. A high of 3 tonight, clear, and a low of -2. But as the evening progresses in Churchill, becoming partly cloudy with a southwest wind gusting to 40 kilometers an hour. We're at 22 minutes before 8 o'clock here on this Thanksgiving Day, and many will spend time with family and friends. Perhaps you have a turkey on the go, or you'll be baking a pumpkin pie, or as you heard from Heather Wells' CBC Winnipeg News, some folks might be skipping the turkey. The CBC's Jim Agapito asked Winnipeggers what their plans are, including Jessica Barkhouse.
I love the fact that Thanksgiving brings a lot of people together, and all the food and festivities are always a fun time too, and especially like at school with the midterms coming up, it's kind of a little bit of a brightener for everybody when we need it most.
I am Eva Miranda. You know what? I just received an email from my advisor. I completely forgot about Thanksgiving because I am from another culture. I am from Brazil, and I forgot about the holiday.
What are you going to do then?
Wow, I think I will be thankful for the holiday.
But are you going to be able to go out and see anyone and do something for it?
Yeah, we have a group of international friends because we don't have any traditions for Thanksgiving, so we are making up our own traditions. We are here for 3-4 years. We are kind of building our own small traditions about it.
Victoria Romero. It's an important time of year, I think, not necessarily for its colonial roots and where the holiday comes from or the idea of it, but as a reminder to really think about what we have. Well, it's actually my birthday on the 13th. So I will be celebrating, but I'll also be spending some time with my family. My father is an immigrant, so I don't have any of his side of the family in Canada. My mom's family is very small as well. I just have me, myself, my brother, and my dad, and my mom. It's nice that we're still able to have the time to come together to celebrate and even just spend time in good health. It's rare, I think, in today's world that you get a moment to slow down.
My name's Steve Taylor. It's a big weekend for us. It's my son's birthday on Monday, so we're having all the family over here to celebrate Thanksgiving and my son's birthday together. And this year, my mom, my parents are from Newfoundland. My mom is teaching my partner how to cook a classic Newfie dinner. So We're going to be having a Newfie Jigs dinner here on Saturday with the whole family here.
What is that dinner?
Okay, so this dinner growing up, every Sunday we had it. It's like having Christmas dinner, but every single week. So you have chicken, stuffing, carrots, potatoes, turnip, bread pudding, peas pudding, cabbage, you name it. So I was always the envy. Friends were always asking if they could come over on Sunday for dinner, but now we don't have it every Sunday anymore, now that I don't obviously live at home, but it's fantastic.
Abigail Oladapo. Spend time with my friends and my families.
Food, big part of it.
A lot of food.
Okay, give me a preview. What is it going to be?
So it's going to be roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, jollof rice, because where I come from, our big celebratory food is jollof rice. So jollof rice and chicken, plantains, and a lot of snacks. Jollof rice is like a food we used to celebrate where I come from, Nigeria. So it's just made of rice, tomatoes, and peppers, and then you just mix it together and then you have your jollof rice.
I actually live with my boyfriend's family and they're Asian. So we do a lot of like the spread of like different Asian foods instead of like the stereotypical turkey and all that. We do rice, lots of meat. Sometimes we offer food to the ancestors as well as like a ceremony kind of thing.
We have people from Colombia, we have people from Netherlands, we have people from here, from Manitoba, and we have people from Brazil. So usually we try to bring one dish of our own culture that we know how to prepare. I'm bringing caruru. It's an Afro-Brazilian dish made with okra and shrimp. During October, we do this dish to celebrate children back in Brazil. October 12th is Children's Day, and we have two deities that are associated with children, and we offer this dish to them.
And how many people do you think are going to be there?
Oh, more than 15. Plus the teenagers that doesn't count as people.
So some of their families.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, usually we do stick to the turkey or, you know, the traditional festive grub, but in years past we've done like pierogies instead and cabbage rolls. I'm Ukrainian, so the thing that I'm the most excited for is the pumpkin pie. So usually I get pumpkin pie instead of a birthday cake. That's my favorite, and I wait all year for it. And I usually try to like not have any pumpkin pie before Thanksgiving weekend, so I've been waiting all year for this and I'm super excited.
Okay, are you a whipped cream person? You put a lot of whipped cream on top?
Okay. It depends. I like real whipped cream, not Cool Whip.
It takes hours. I was actually talking to my mom. It'll start in the morning and it probably takes between 4 and 6 hours to make. What makes it different is all the vegetables are cooked in one pot with what's called salt meat, and that kind of gives it the flavor, and everything gets thrown in there. The only thing that's not cooked in the giant pot is the chicken or the turkey with the stuffing inside of that.
What's your favorite part then of Thanksgiving dinner?
Wherever the stuffing is, they always use the crust of the bread to kind of close it off, and that gets extra crispy, we'll say, when it's cooked, and we call it the heel. And that's my favorite part. I always claim it.
So you claim it before anyone even gets it there?
They already know. They don't even argue it. They know that it's mine, so I get it.
How many people are going to be coming to this festivity?
A lot. So let's just give it like 50. It's always like a big celebration for Nigerians because that's the only time we get to like come together and spend time for people who don't have their families here. So it's like a time to like be together.
What message of thanks do you have?
I like to reflect on how I can use my privilege and use, you know, what I've learned throughout the last year to better the world around me.
I think I'm thankful for my life and where I am and how thankful to have what I do have, you know, because I never would have expected to be in university. I never would have expected to be where I am today.
I'm thankful because I am healthy. I am able to express myself. My English is improving. I feel balanced and peaceful.
The fact that I live close to so much of my family, that we can all get together like this as often as we can. I'm lucky enough to live right next door to my brother. We're just lucky to be so close and to have everybody get along and everybody be there for each other.
That was the CBC's Jim Agapito asking Winnipeggers about their long weekend plans. Anishinaabe MC and songwriter Leonard Sumner strung feelings of hope and struggle across his EP Traveling Light. Off of it, this is Tulips and Begonias.
In years past, past, I went from practically homeless, sleeping on couches, swimming in loan debt, to owning a fortress. And now I'm just homeless. Life of a poet, turned the words into portraits. I made a promise never to forget people who helped me when I was a poor mess. To you I say me quetch for helping me progress. Battle was heavy, but a part of the process. Hey, let me paint this picture for you. Pretty colors and flowers, tulips and begonias. Hey, let me see if this looks good on you. Pretty colors and flowers, tulips and begonias. Hey, let me paint this picture for you. Pretty colors and flowers, tulips and begonias. Hey, let me see if this looks good on you. Pretty colors and flowers, tulips and begonias. When I close my eyes and my dreams come alive, don't it feel like you're here with me? When I close my eyes and my dreams come alive, don't this place just feel less empty? Yeah.
From Little Saskatchewan First Nation, that was Leonard Sumner with Tulips and Begonias from it. That was from his EP, Traveling Light. We're at 12 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello as well to the folks who are watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. The first day of school is behind us. Picture Day has come and gone. For many students, the reality of their workload is setting in, and homework assignments might be piling up. Deanna Kara Schaefer is a learning strategist, CEO, and founder of Awakened Learning and adjunct faculty as well at Toronto Metropolitan University. Joining us on the line now, happy Thanksgiving. Hi, Deanna. Dina, I should say.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving to you, too.
We put so much focus on the start of school, Dina, but what tends to happen a month or so in, like we are right now? Paint us a picture.
I love that you're asking this because it's a story that needs to be shared broadly. We have so much energy around that back to school, right? The new outfits, the new teachers, the new school, the new friends. Not always positive. Sometimes there's some other big feelings, but there's so much energy around it. And now, after the day in, day out of the past number of weeks, we're squarely in it. And so what are learners feeling? They're feeling things pile up. They have quizzes, tests, midterms. They have essays and labs. They have their ongoing homework and the bigger, longer-term projects. And so it can be a time of high stress and waning stamina because of that flurry of initial energy kind of falling by the wayside. The reality of what's hitting them is really here, along with potentially a backlog of work and within a context of other activities and responsibilities.
It's fascinating because as adults, as you were describing all of those things, I could already start to feel that like under my stomach and my back starting to get tense. But I imagine for kids and particularly for young adults, that there are signs that parents ought to watch for that they may not themselves be aware of.
Yeah, it's so important. You're right. Some students might come home and share outright with their parents and chosen family hey, I've got a big workload right now, but others might really keep quiet out of shame, out of nervousness, out of worry because they don't really know what or how to share or to kind of make stress for anyone else. And so things that I would encourage a parent to listen for are sentences like, I don't really have that much work to do, or that assignment isn't really a big deal, or that won't take me very long. Anything that minimizes the work tasks that they're facing. In the student clients I work with, this is often what they'll share when they actually don't really know where to begin, where they're feeling overwhelmed or a little lost. Or even sentences around boredom. Sometimes it might be an uninteresting class, but other times it's because it's a little bit masking that it's hard to understand, or I don't really even know what the instructions are. And those are hard to share with your parents straight up like that.
How do you start the conversation about breaking whatever the thing is or the things down into breakable size, into manageable sizes? How do you start that conversation?
Yeah, I love that. I think it begins with genuine interest, a kind of ongoing interest in what your child is learning, no matter the age or subject area. I think it also is important for parents to understand that what worked for them won't necessarily work for their learners in terms of study strategies and approaches to time management. But, a great way that parents can help is through, for example, nudging learners to move past those to-do lists that parents and professionals have too, the mile-long task list. Because students will write stuff down like study or write an essay or read the novel. But those are layered, time-consuming, and complex, and they're not easy to cross out. So instead, a parent, a chosen family member, a mentor can encourage a learner to get a little bit clearer and more concrete, like by studying how many practice questions would make sense, or writing that history essay. How many words do you feel it would take each day to reach that 1,000-word essay? Or reading that novel, if it's a 250-page novel for English or French class, how many days do you have? And let's break down the number of pages you'd need to read it by so that there isn't much stress and the work all gets done.
Dina Cara, this might sound like a lot of work for parents who might be dealing with a lot themselves. For parents who have that in mind, what do you say to them? How involved should they be?
Yeah, I so get that. And as a parent, I'm with you. What I would say is twofold. First is it's even more exhausting and time-consuming when the student is frustrated, exhausted, procrastinating, coming home with languishing marks. They're feeling disoriented and don't know where to begin. So all of that takes time and kind of energy too. And I would say there is an enormous return on investment here. Teaching a student the skills of learning strategies, like how to prioritize, how to study efficiently, they go with the student across the subjects and years. And so it's not taught in teacher education. It's not taught to students in the classroom, but parents can fill in the gap. I don't want to make more work for any parent or any person, but the results can be transformative because then the student knows what to do and how to do it.
Really appreciate you making time to chat about this. Thank you, and take good care.
Thank you so much.
Dina Cara Schaefer is a learning strategist and author of Feel Good Learning. Moving on to a different type of school, Santa School. More from the CBC's Travis Burke.
I just want to learn how to be Santa.
Yeah, they have great bells, good sounding bells.
It started a year ago. I canoed from Whitehorse to Dawson in September, and my beard came in white. So I just kept it going. And anyways, I feel like I didn't choose Santa. Santa chose me.
Getting out into the field of being Santa Claus here itself, what happens when you get sick of milk and cookies? Where do you go from there?
I love milk.
Yeah. Who could get sick of milk and cookies?
Yeah, especially chocolate chip.
Always bells. And this one we got.
We are launching our Santa School for 2024. It's our second attempt at a local Santa School here in the Yukon. And for us, it's an important event to kind of encourage more people to engage actively in the spirit of Christmas. Merry Christmas and Celebrate.
And this year we thought we would invite a few more people to get the background, to get the tips that we've learned over the years of what works, what doesn't work, and how to help the children enjoy the Christmas spirit as best as possible.
You create your costume, like if you wanted to be an historical Santa, or more of a St. Nicholas with the long robe and the crozier.
Yes. I have done it in Nigeria, and I want to be in this school so that I'll be able to know how it happens here, so that I'll be able to participate properly and play the role well. I am interested in children. I have joy when I am with the children. I have grandchildren.
These actually are at the dollar store, but they'll only last for about 1 or 2 visits, and they're gone. They're very thin, but you need a good white glove. For me, it's part of the thing. But
sometimes you come and they want to pull your beard, the children, they want to see if it is real,
What do you do when that happens?
You just allow them to draw it. Yeah.
I wear mucklucks. But it's again interpreting or taking your image of what you want to do or be.
Some folks taking part in Santa School at the White House Public Library, speaking with the CBC's Travis Burke. Let's head to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, 7 First Nations are working together to reforest Devil's Lake. It's a site in Manitoba's Interlake ravaged by wildfire in 2021. Floyd North is a liaison for the First Nations, and he says while reforestation projects often take place on their lands, it's been a long time for Indigenous communities to get to play a role, so we'll hear more coming up. And the Manitoba Cricket Association says 2 new pitches opening in Winnipeg next spring are going to be a huge hit. Cricket Association President Parmajit Shahi says the sport's growing, but there still aren't enough places to play. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, along with Joni Nicolou and Austin Shebakiget. Chloe Friesen has a look at the commute. Hello.
Hello. Not much going on out there. No calls to the commuter line quite yet. But a reminder that if you're using public transit, either in the city of Brandon or the city of Winnipeg, both of those bus schedules are running on a Sunday schedule today. If you do spot something that is slowing you down or getting in your way on your commute this Monday, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks very much, Chloe Friesen, our director here on the program. Marshall Hodgins is our technician. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. And I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Lots to come, including a full look at your weather forecast for this Thanksgiving Monday. Stay tuned. World Report is standing by.
With Tom Power. Jelly Roll is not your average country singer. Growing up in a suburb of Nashville, he learned to rap and then went to jail when he was just 14. Jelly Roll will tell you about his incredible story from incarceration to music stardom and how to sell someone on the street your CD.
I never get lonely.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
At One Toronto Hospital Network, 100 patients with no fixed address made up 3% of all emergency room visits. Now, a group of these patients is getting a permanent home and a chance at a new life. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A healthy school lunch is becoming a luxury for an increasing number of Canadians. A large investment from the federal government tried to change that, but it is now a month and a half into the school year, and as Deanna Sumanek Johnson tells us, many schools have yet to see a penny of that money.
And then they were calling us saying all of these kids are hungry.
Jessica Stevenson, who manages school meals charity Niagara Nutrition Partners, has been getting calls from panicked school principals. High prices of groceries, more and more families struggling to provide school lunches and snacks has caused what she's calling the perfect storm. What she needs is for the Ontario government to sign on to the federally announced school food program.
The length of time that it's taking is literally going to put us under.
The federal Liberals announced the nationwide school meals program with great aplomb in the spring. $1 billion over 5 years to be divvied up among the provinces. But 6 weeks into the school year, only Newfoundland and Labrador has signed the agreement. Debbie Field, the national coordinator of the Coalition for Healthy School Food, says charities and parents shouldn't get discouraged.
And if Ontario signs as quickly as we think it will, we think that'll have a big implication for others.
Says will be life-changing for many, something that's clear to Debbie Marshall, head cook with Newfoundland and Labrador's School Lunches Association.
If a child haven't got a full belly, they're not going to be able to learn in school. You need a full belly.
And with the additional $9.1 million over 3 years that her province has accessed, she knows she can now fill many more bellies, fuel more young minds. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
There is more political finger-pointing going on between India and Canada. India's government has released a statement saying it received a diplomatic communication from Ottawa yesterday, one that suggests the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats are persons of interest in a Canadian investigation. The statement does not clarify whether that investigation is the one looking into the murder of BC Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. But it does say the High Commissioner is India's senior-most serving diplomat and calls the allegations against him preposterous and politically motivated. At least 10 people are reported dead in northern Gaza. Palestinian health officials say an Israeli airstrike hit a food distribution center there, and at least 4 people were killed in another strike at a hospital compound in central Gaza. Crystal Gomansing has more from Jerusalem.
People run fetching small buckets of water, too little to knock back flames chewing through coverings of temporary shelters. Dozens of displaced Palestinians had been sheltering around the non-functioning Al-Aqsa hospital. Israeli officials say Hamas set up a command center and was using the location to conduct strikes against Israelis.
Hamas and Hezbollah don't care about the people they ostensibly are supporting.
Colonel Brendan Carney says that doesn't mean the loss of life isn't terrible. The former chief of staff for U.S. Marines in Europe does say these groups are known to operate around people, choosing to put them at risk.
Even neutral observers has said that they go ahead and they position their rocket launchers, they position their military operations in schools, in hospitals. They are looking for every opportunity to go ahead and evoke the emotions of the rest of the world.
As Israel engages in military operations in Gaza and Lebanon, it says to ensure its security, Sunday was one of the bloodiest days the country has seen in the past year. 28 soldiers were wounded in 2 separate incidents in Lebanon, and a military base in the Haifa district was attacked. The IDF confirmed 4 soldiers were killed. How Hezbollah was able to hit the base is being investigated. No warning sirens were triggered, alerting people to an incoming threat. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
China's military is conducting large-scale drills all around Taiwan. Military aircraft and ships are simulating an assault on the self-governing island.
You have entered ROC Taiwan restrict water without permission.
That is a Taiwanese Coast Guard ship broadcasting to a Chinese vessel, telling it to leave its waters. China claims Taiwan as its own. It says these military exercises are a warning to Taiwanese separatists. The drills come just a few days after the island marked its National Day. Taiwan's defense ministry says China employed 125 military aircraft in its war games, the most in a single day. It calls that irrational and provocative behavior. Hundreds of thousands of people in Florida are still without power this morning, 5 days after Hurricane Milton tore across the state. As Aaron Collins reports, help is coming from far and wide, including Canada.
Get it. We are cleaning up debris from a fallen tree in our backyard.
In Tampa, Nicole Kemp is trying to get her yard cleaned up. Her family without power since Milton made landfall, hopeful that some visitors from out of state will change that.
But we have plenty of people from out of town. We just spoke to linesmen that are from New Jersey that came down to help. So, I mean, they're doing their best.
People in Florida are still without power. Among those trying to change that, linesmen from across Canada. Paul Bresky is with the Nova Scotia Power Crew working in Tampa.
This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We're just going to walk with purpose. We want everyone to come home the way they left.
The U.S. president has pledged $600 million to beef up the region's power grid. Joe Biden also thanked out-of-state power workers for helping to get the lights back on.
And thanks to tens of thousands of power workers from 43 states and Canada working nonstop, even more people will have more power restored soon.
A lack of power, just one problem faced by Floridians. Gas shortages around the Gulf Coast also slowing efforts to rebuild. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Tampa, Florida.
We're learning more about the armed man arrested trying to get into a Donald Trump rally. The man had a shotgun, a loaded handgun, and ammunition in his vehicle. He was detained on Saturday outside a rally in the Southern California desert. Here is Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco.
The deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens.
Bianco did not speculate about the suspect's motives or frame of mind. We do know the man who was arrested is a 49-year-old resident of Las Vegas. He was released on $5,000 bail later that same day. Trump's campaign has not commented on the arrest. Polls suggest the race between Trump and Kamala Harris is so tight, the next U.S. president could be decided by a few thousand voters in a handful of states. Every vote counts. And there's a big push to get Americans who live in Canada to cast absentee ballots. The CBC's Philip Lee Shannock has that story.
Ian Hopper, the U.S. consular chief based in Toronto, says out of more than 600,000 eligible U.S. citizens in Canada, only about 3% voted in the last election.
A lot of Americans who are living overseas either think they can't vote or they're confused by the process because every state has different deadlines.
Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly cast doubt on absentee ballots in the past, saying they're susceptible to fraud, although without any evidence.
I feel very comfortable knowing that my ballot is secure.
Georgianne Burke of Republicans Overseas has already mailed her vote to Florida. She says most Americans in Canada tend to vote Democrat.
The environment here is not particularly friendly to Republicans.
Lee Strickland of Democrats Abroad says votes from Canada could tip the balance in crucial swing states again.
U.S. citizens abroad won the election in Arizona and Georgia for Joe Biden.
Mark Trussler of the University of Pennsylvania says the vote from abroad could be as divided as the vote at home.
People kind of look at this as saying, well, this is going to be, a huge benefit for the Democrats. It's hard to see that because, a lot of the overseas voters are military.
Still, Republicans are already filing lawsuits in several swing states, calling absentee ballots a source of potential voter fraud before they're even counted. Philip Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is World Report for this hour. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Faith Wendell in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And good morning to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Chloe Friesen, our studio director. Marshall Hodgins, our technician here on the program. Coming up, with the weather getting colder, Main Street Project wants to warm the souls of those in need, one sock at a time. We'll have that conversation coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Stay tuned. Mostly cloudy, 4 degrees here in downtown Winnipeg. Coming up to a high of 8 degrees. We'll get at your full forecast still to come. First, though, to your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, bringing an interlake forest back from the ashes. The site just south of Grand Rapids was ravaged by wildfire in 2021. Now, Blue Green Planet Project wants to restore Devil's Lake in the Interlake by planting 20 million trees by the end of the decade. And a group of 7 Manitoba First Nations are among the volunteers. We'll hear about it coming up. As well, RCMP are back in the rural municipality of Riverdale after the province shut down the Rivers Police Service. That service policed the town of Rivers with its 2,000 people for 111 years. The mayor of the RM says they're still fighting to get the Rivers Police back in action. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Freezing fog at the airport in Churchill, -2, mainly clear, -8 in Thompson. Cloudy and 3 degrees at the airport in Dauphin. Brandon, mostly cloudy and 3 degrees. Here in downtown Winnipeg, it is mostly cloudy and 4 degrees, 3 degrees at the airport, and we are expecting a temperature high of 8 degrees, and as the day progresses, clearing conditions, which is pretty much similar for much of the listening region except for Thompson, where we're expecting sun and cloud mixture, high of 7, and for Churchill, chance of shower flurries and mainly cloudy conditions for the rest of today, but by the afternoon time it will clear and a temperature high of 3 degrees. Chloe Friesen has been watching, the very busy commute.
So busy.
It is so busy.
On a long weekend, Monday during Thanksgiving, yes, the busiest of commutes. Not a lot going on out there, but I will remind folks of a few things that are coming up. Pembina Highway, there's going to be intermittent closures of all northbound and southbound lanes of Pembina Highway, and this is between Abinogi-Meekina and Plaza Drive. It starts today and is happening until October 25th. This is for electrical work. Northbound and southbound lanes will be open for morning and afternoon rush hours, but all other times it will be closed, so you might not want to rely on Pembina Highway northbound or southbound between between Abinogi-Meekina and Plaza Drive. As well, I'll mention Hargrave Street. All northbound lanes of Hargrave Street between Hargrave Place and York Avenue will be closed for 1 hour during paving operations from October 15th until October 17th. So it doesn't last as long, but could get in your way, and you can expect delays there around Hargrave Street. And if you are using public transit today in either Brandon or Winnipeg, those buses are on a Sunday schedule today. And if you're curious about what is open today, you can head to our website for a full list of what's open and closed. That's at cbc.ca/Manitoba. And if you see anything on that commute, give us a call, 204-788-3093.
"14 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Can you spare a pair? It's the question Main Street Project is asking Manitobans this month. As we all know, Winnipeg winters can get cold, and a pair of good socks can go a long way, especially for folks experiencing homelessness. It's why for the last 7 years, the nonprofit has celebrated Socktober every October. Cindy Titus is with Main Street Project and joining us on the line now. Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
This is one of your largest annual donation drives. Just how many pairs of socks are you hoping to collect?
This year, our goal is to collect about 30,000 pairs of new socks.
What's it like during the year, or as you sort of look back at previous fundraising drives? How many socks do you typically collect?
Well, last October, we collected about 60,000 pairs of socks, and I think that was our biggest year ever. We're so lucky in that Winnipeg and Manitoba as a whole is very supportive of the work that we do. And so, when we set a goal of 30,000 pairs, we definitely believe that with everyone's support, we'll definitely beat that goal.
How would you characterize how much of a difference a new pair of socks makes for someone in particular experiencing homelessness?
I would say for many of us, socks are such an easy thing to access, and we probably don't think about it too much. We always have socks readily available, and if we need new ones, it's easy for us to grab a pair. But for the folks that we serve, access to new socks is really challenging. People experiencing homelessness are especially vulnerable to foot problems in cold weather and wet weather, which our winter can be, a mix of cold and wet. Clean, dry socks make a huge difference in their overall health and well-being.
And of course, when you see conditions like this weekend where it was sunny to start off with at the beginning of the long weekend, and then it rained on one of the days, when you don't have access to socks, when it rains, it's a problem, right?
Totally. And the folks that we support tend to spend a lot of time outside in the elements, walking. They spend a lot of time walking every day, and often without adequate footwear, including a good pair of socks. So they tend to experience many foot health issues that can become quite serious.
You were saying that socks seem to be sort of like not something that we often think about or not in the front of our minds. What sorts of socks are you looking for specifically?
So just keeping in mind the weather that we have here in Winnipeg, over the next 6 months or so, a really good, warm, moisture-wicking pair of socks would be great. We have some really great socks on our Amazon wish list that tend to be the merino wool type of thing.
Right.
We want socks that can really keep people warm and dry during the next several months.
Moisture wicking, that seems like a fancy kind of sock. What do you mean by that?
That's a great question. I think it's just socks that are made of a certain material that help take moisture away from the feet, and I think they're easily dryable.
How do you usually ask folks to donate socks? Is it like donate money and then you'll buy them, or is it to bring socks over to Main Street?
That's a great question. There's lots of ways people can help. So folks can do a sock collection drive with your friends, family, or colleagues at work. You can sign up to become a sock drop-off location either in the city of Winnipeg or outside of Winnipeg as well. As I mentioned, we have a number of pairs of socks on our Amazon wish list. If you go there and purchase socks, your donation will be mailed directly to us. We also have a Socktober poster you can put up at your workplace or school, and then socks can be dropped off to us in person at 661 Main Street, and all this information is available on our website.
Cindy, what do you make of why people donate, why people take part in this campaign? Because you mentioned schools as well. What have you heard from folks about why this is something they care about?
I think that Winnipeg just cares as a whole, and Manitoba. We're known as a very generous province, and from what I've seen in the work that I do at Main Street Project is that people care a lot about their neighbors experiencing homelessness, and they want to do whatever they can to help.
Cindy, we're talking about socks right now, but I know Main Street Project has other needs. What else are you looking for?
Yeah, so we're definitely looking for winter-type clothing for the coming winter months. So things like toques, scarves, mittens, gloves, winter jackets, snow pants, and boots. And then comfortable layers like, sweatshirts, sweatpants, and long johns and that type of thing. We always need hygiene items like shampoo, conditioner, toothbrush, toothpaste, that kind of thing. And definitely always financial donations as well.
Cindy, thanks for making time today, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks so much. You too.
Cindy Titus is with Main Street Project.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We are just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
This is a proposed corridor for multiple pipeline projects.
You're crossing our territory on two ends of your pipeline. Who gave you permission?
Pipelines break of the pipelines would destroy the water and everything in it.
They got to come through us first.
This is an immediate evacuation order for all Coastal GasLink employees. I feel like we are at war. It's just all been building up to this point.
Yenta on the Passionate Eye. Watch free on CBC Gem.
20 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1 on this holiday Monday. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Zookeepers at the Toronto Zoo have been getting some help feeding the animals lately. A robot has been dropping off bags of crickets, meat, and other animal feed to the various enclosures. Picture a big zebra print cooler on wheels with a smiley face. The roving robot's name is Bubs. Created in Ottawa and recently was back there for some updates and minor repairs. The CBC's Simon Smith stopped by the Invest Ottawa campus to see Bubs in action.
So this is one of the upgrades Bubs is getting right now. Actually, we're going to be replacing this lid. But this cabin here has been designed specifically for the zoo. So there's exactly enough room for a zookeeper to take one of their food bins from the nutrition center, pick it up, deposit it in here. It's temperature sealed, so it's temperature controlled, and then deliver it to the animals exhibit.
Really doesn't make that much sound. And true, that's kind of by design for the zoo project. Right?
Definitely by design, because the interaction with the animals, what they call it there is their social integration, is very important, right? So making sure they're not startled by these robots kind of running around the zoo is a really big important part of our process there, and it's a big part of our test and pilot. Hi, I'm Sharif Varani, and I'm the head of growth at Real Life Robotics. This is Bubs. He lives at the Toronto Zoo. He's part of our Zoober delivery program there. So currently, the Toronto Zoo moves about 1 to 1.5 tons of food per day across 700 acres. Now, they do that right now through the use of their own staff and a combination of golf carts and F-150 trucks. So very resource intensive, very emissions intensive. And so those short distances that have to be done to drop a bag of 50 crickets from their central kitchen to the iguana exhibit is done in a truck. And there's huge amounts of emissions, very similar to the emissions associated when you order that small little two-pound burrito to your house. They've got a net zero goal, I believe it's by the year 2030 or so, and this will help them get well on their way towards that, because a lot of those emissions, again, were associated with that 1 to 1.5 tons of food that they're moving every single day across 700 acres. It also offers some really significant benefits to the zoo on the resourcing side, where staff now have more time to spend on the care of the animals.
Looking at him, I mean, he's not very big, he's got a cute face. Like, I think a lot of people might, look at him and not be too intimidated, right? But I think he does represent something bigger, maybe scarier for some people. What would you say to someone who's maybe worried that this kind of technology could be, replacing workers?
As I mentioned right now, quality of care is very important at the zoo. So the more time that staff and zookeepers can spend on taking care of the animals, the better that quality of care is. And it also expands the pool for employment beyond just people living in that area. So right now in Canada, we have a huge labor challenge. There's tons of jobs across Canada that just can't be filled right now. And you can increase those wages, but we still just don't have people willing to do those jobs. It's doing a lot towards making working conditions better for Canadians by leveraging automation and robotics as a tool. We're not looking to replace people. It's a tool. Just the same way that, people now use ChatGPT sometimes when you're writing an email and you need to spell check it, you throw it in ChatGPT. Well, Bubs is the same thing. He's allowing us to do our jobs better and faster while saving also emissions, which is better for the environment.
My name is Stefan Zolov, and I'm a project manager here at Inter Robotics.
All right, so we're in the 3D printing room. Tell me what's going on here.
What we're doing right now is one of the top lid panels, which is already cut up into about 4 sections. This is one of the middle sections, one of the larger ones. And we have to use this large printer, and this is just a redesign of an existing part on Bubs to improve upon its already, pretty innovative design. It's going to be half of the width of Bubs, so this is going to probably go overnight and into tomorrow just to get it, dialed in super nice, and the quality is really reliable.
Show me how you start up Bubs. How does this work?
It's pretty straightforward. So on the back end, we have what we like to call an I/O panel, input/output, and it's also where the start button is. This turns on the main power for the actual base platform, the 4-wheel. We can close this back up. And then at the same time, we can hold these guys down, This is just a manual controller, the same we'd have for like a remote control car. This, like I said, can operate autonomously. But you know, if you ever just need to take control, bring it out, you have control for yourself. So okay, just turn it on and then it's good to go. Simple as that.
The zoo isn't the end goal here, right? You eventually want to take this out to city sidewalks to deliver food to people. What's the, I guess, plan there? What's the timeline?
So the zoo project itself has two phases to it. First phase being autonomous delivery of food between their central kitchen and the animal habitats. We're well on our way towards that right now. We have Bubs here in Ottawa right now for some testing. He's getting a couple upgrades, a couple little repairs and things like that. And he'll be back deployed at the zoo. And phase 2, which will be most likely in the new year, will be looking at the delivery of retail and restaurant goods across the zoo campus as well. Phase 2 for real-life robotics will be launching a pilot on public roads, supervised, in the GTA area in early 2025. I don't want to say exactly where, but keep your eyes tuned for that. And part of that test, we'll be working with educators at York University to monitor that human-robot interaction, and we'll be involving stakeholder groups like the CNIB to see how humans can interact with robots and how robots can interact with humans, to make sure that we're addressing everyone's concern and that we're rolling things out at a safe pace and at an intentional pace. So we're not just throwing them out on the road and saying go wild.
You can see Bubs, the Ottawa-made robot, helping feed animals at the Toronto Zoo. We're at 26 and a half minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Dafne got her start in the Winnipeg music scene as a backup singer for local pop star Begonia. Now she's ready to set off on her own with the release of her debut EP, featuring this next tune, her love letter to Winnipeg's nightlife. Here's Dafne and Solid Gold.
Singles at the Woodbine, dancing in a grapevine, taking boys that are not mine. Circling the Goodwill, trying to find a spot that's free. I keep looking until City Hall, Central Park, Solid Gold. Every stop sign, trying to make the garbage hill climb. Red wine by the riverside. Cross the bridge when we get there. Maybe climb the fire escape. Anything to get away. City Hall, Central Park, Solid Gold. Chicken on Sherbrooke, maybe hit a karaoke bar. We don't have to go too far. Don't you know this is for fur? No one ever calls a chauffeur, and it all becomes a blur. City Hall, Central Park, Solid Gold. After dark. City Hall, Central Park, Solid Gold.
That is Winnipeg singer-songwriter Dafne with Solid Gold. Her debut EP of the same name is out. Coming up on The Current, it's Flavorama time for a guide to unlocking the art and science of flavor. Ariel Johnson's new book teaches about the science of flavor because she thinks if we understand more about it, we can use that knowledge to guide our cooking and improve our kitchen intuition. Stay tuned for that conversation coming up here on The Current right after Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. And of course, hello as well to the folks who are watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Our technician today is Marshall Hodgins. Our director is Chloe Friesen. And again, I'm Faith Fundal. No, you have not slept in. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. We'll give you a full look at your weather forecast still to come here on the program in our last little bit of the program. Stay tuned. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 4 degrees out there. We're going to see a bit of a breeze from the northeast, keeping us cool. A high today of just 8, and that is cooler than seasonal. We warm back up into the double digits by the middle of the week. RCMP are back in the rural municipality of Riverdale after the province shut down the Rivers Police Service. That service policed the town of Rivers with its 2,000 people for 111 years. RM of Riverdale Mayor Heather Lamb says it's disheartening seeing the force shuttered without input from the municipality. She wants to bring the police force back, but says it will take help from the province.
I'll always have hope that we can still have a police department here in Riverdale since we had it for so long. Our next steps, though, will just be trying to get additional RCMP officers to maintain a safe community, and then maybe we can work through having staff again.
The Rivers Police Service struggled earlier this year after 4 staff, including the chief, left. Manitoba's Justice Minister says the province is still in talks with the municipality about the future of its policing. 7 First Nations are working together to reforest Devil's Lake. It's in Manitoba's Interlake and was ravaged by wildfire in 2021. It sits along Highway 6 south of Grand Rapids. Floyd North is a liaison for the First Nations. He says while reforestation projects often take place on their lands, it's been a long time coming for Indigenous communities to play a role.
The biggest part of that is the reconciliation. For First Nations, they've always wanted to be part of the decision making, always wanted to be part of the forest industry, but took almost 150 years.
Blue Green Planet Project began planting seedlings in the area in 2022. 29 of the volunteers are from First Nations. More political finger-pointing going on between India and Canada. India's government has just released a statement. It says it received diplomatic communication from Ottawa yesterday, one that suggests the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats are persons of interest in a Canadian investigation. The statement does not clarify whether that investigation is the one looking into the murder of BC Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, but it does say the High Commissioner is India's senior most-serving diplomat and calls the allegations against him preposterous and politically motivated. Well, do you celebrate Thanksgiving with a big meal? Some Winnipeggers are making a point to skip the turkey dinner, opting instead for something with less cost and less stress. Karina Mark and Tori Brown celebrated Thanksgiving on Saturday and for the first time did it potluck style with 14 family members.
Because when you have the whole turkey dinner and all that, nothing against it. We love it. We do it for Christmas. But it becomes a lot of stress on the people who have to cook the big meal. And this took all the stress off of it, or a lot of it anyways. Yes. And so it was like much more enjoyable as a result.
Others say they're foregoing the tradition because of dietary restrictions or just because they simply want to change things up. Winnipeg cricket fans are all abuzz over new pitches coming to the city. Lakvinder Virk says sometimes he has to travel as far as Brandon to get his game on.
We wait for pretty much whole week for a game in the weekend. And just because we have less grounds, sometimes we have to wait for 2 weeks to play. That's not a fun. I'm very excited because we really need more cricket grounds here.
A youth pitch is planned for Waverly Heights and a regulation size pitch in Bridgewater. Construction wraps up this month. Both are set to open next spring. The city says the total budget for these cricket pitches was more than $200,000. For the first time in franchise history, the Winnipeg Jets is starting its season with 3 straight wins.
Connor leads, fires and scores!
Kyle Connor with a power play goal on TSN, lifting the Jets to a win with just 51 seconds into overtime. Winnipeg beat the Minnesota Wild 2-1, the second straight overtime win for Winnipeg. The Jets' other goal came with just 2.9 seconds left in the first period as Winnipeg pulled the goalie for an extra attacker. It was Mark Scheifele's 4th goal of the season and came on his 800th career NHL game. Connor Hellebuck making 26 saves last night, and the Jets' next play on Friday which happens to be Connor Hellebuck Night. Winnipeg will host San Jose. You can find more on the game and other news from Manitoba. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Faith.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, joining Nicolou there as well with Austin Sheba-Kiget. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa for this last little east wind at 20 kilometers an hour this afternoon. Chloe Friesen.
Hello.
It's been so busy, eh? Just kidding.
So busy. No,
Not.
yeah.
It's not.
No, not busy at all on the commute this afternoon. Really no worries here in the city of Winnipeg. If you are using public transit today, I will remind folks that today is the buses are running on a Sunday schedule. It is Monday, but they are running on a Sunday schedule, and that's happening both here and in the city of Brandon. But yeah, I'm thankful that I got to spend the morning here with you lovely folks.
Me too.
It was great.
It's nice to work with you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Chloe Friesen, our director. Marshall Hudgens is our technician. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream, Kevin Nipatebo is our streaming producer. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care wherever you are. Thanks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving